Okay. All right. We'd like to welcome everybody to our public invited to be heard section of our city council meeting for May 21st, 2020. Thank you all for being here this evening to exercise your right to petition the government and to exercise your free speech. We have more people signed up to talk than we actually have time to accommodate. If you would like, you could send us an email instead at mailbox@kaysvillecity.com. Once you are here on the Zoom, we will ask you to use the raise your hand feature. Hosts will select the next speaker and unmute you. I will call your name and you can start speaking. Because of the time, we are asking for you to be as brief as possible so that more members of the group are able to address the council. If you are on the phone, and you raise your hand by hitting *9 to raise your hand. All right. Okay, so we are going to start off with, it's actually the email that you would send it to is publiccomment@kaysvillecity.com, please. All right, I think we are ready for the first person to address us. I'll wait okay, Sylvia Haro, please. And you will have two and a half minutes.
I've sent my comments by email to all the council members.
Thank you. Would you like to say anything else?
No, nothing else.
All right. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sylvia.
Thank you, Sylvia.
All right. And if you would like to speak, please raise your hand and the host will call on somebody. Okay, next person to speak will be Brandon Burned, please.
Thank you, Mayor Witt. I just wanted to take a moment and submit to all of you the results of a petition that I had online. I've sent that over to each of you, and the petition was to have the event at Barnes Park canceled due to multiple concerns. And even though it appears that that's past us, I still wanted to have this recorded because I think it's important for everybody to realize that it was not a fringe group or a bunch of crazy people that were trying to have this canceled. I believe due to the results of this survey that a good majority of the people of Kaysville from all walks of life were opposed to this event. We had 2,600 unique signatures signed. We had 213 unique comments left by people, and I highly encourage you to read those comments because they show all the different reasons why people were opposed to the event. So I appreciate you giving me a chance to speak, and I just wanted to have that submitted for the record. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brandon.
All right.
Thank you, Brandon.
Speaker will be Camille Price. Camille? Technology.
She's still muted.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Witt, members of the City Council, fellow residents and voters of Kaysville. My name is Camille Price. I'm the grandmother of 5 young children who thankfully escaped injury when a car crashed into their property last Sunday, killing 1 young man and injuring 4 others. Their home has been repeatedly damaged by vehicles coming down Crestwood Road during the years they've lived in the house at the corner of Brookshire Drive. And I worry for the children's safety when they go out to play in their own front yard. Mayor Witt, I'm sure you're aware of the corner where the accident occurred, as just a few years ago, the family had a very large Witt for Mayor banner at the same fence that was damaged on Sunday. Our family mourns with the family of Hayden Hansen, and while I will address the current agenda for this meeting, I would be remiss if I neglected taking this opportunity to also mention the more pressing item of traffic engineering and road safety in Kaysville. Hopefully, the city manager is in attendance and will consider this a formal complaint. In the meeting this evening, the City Council intended to consider a proclamation renouncing a concert and public gathering planned for May 30th. While this particular issue has now been resolved, I would be in support of any proclamation renouncing an event that clearly violates state guidelines on public gatherings during the COVID-19 emergency. Madam Mayor, I call on you to use your time and energy to take care of the needs of Kaysville citizens first. Wasting time accommodating and defending extremist outsiders who want to exploit our community through potentially disastrous events clearly shows your priorities are not currently aligned with the needs and wishes of your constituency. It's also a travesty that Kaysville City Management seems to have plenty of time and resources to respond to minor nuisance complaints about weeds, but can't manage to coordinate with police to
30
identify
seconds.
and rectify poorly engineered, dangerous streets in our community. Let's step up and take responsibility to do what it takes to make Crestwood Road safer for our children and our community. And let's stop diverting time and energy to foolish projects that put residents of our community at risk. Thank you.
Thank you, Camille.
Thank you,
All
Camille.
right.
Thank you, Camille.
All right. And before we go on to the next person, it's 2.5 minutes. And Anne Marie, one of the hosts, will let you know when you're out of time. All right. Next speaker is David Bowman, please.
Yes, if someone signed up against agenda items for the council meeting and received a confirmation of that, will they be receiving that speaking time, or has that all been moved to this hour beforehand?
I believe if you've signed up for the other speaking slot, you will still have that slot. Is that correct, Anne Marie?
Yeah, I sent out emails to everyone I got
Okay.
requests.
Yes.
To.
And
Yeah.
so is a confirmation that the request received a confirmation that you got a spot to speak? Because
Yes.
there's
Yes.
often more requests than that. Okay. In that case, I will reserve my comments for that time.
Okay, thank you. All right, if you would like to speak, please raise your hand. And also, if you are on the phone, not on your computer, it's *9. Okay, our next speaker will be Sherry Jameson.
Hi, thank you for taking the time to listen to comments tonight. I just really want to thank the city council members who stood behind the citizens of Kaysville who were concerned with the concert that was scheduled to happen. This event, this whole thing was more than just a concert. If people want to go out, and I am all for the economy reopening. I manage a business in Salt Lake. I own a business in Kaysville. I am all for the economy to reopen and for people to get out and do things. But to be done.
Sherry, I think we've lost your audio.
Sherry, if you want to call back, there she is. Okay. Okay. Perhaps you could call back in?
Can you hear me now?
Now we can. Thank you.
Okay, sorry about that.
Yeah.
Okay,
Let's restart her time.
thank you. So I just wanted to thank the city council members that stood behind the citizens of Kaysville who were concerned about the event that was the economy to away Kaysville and all of the great things that it has to offer. I feel like this event was more than just an event to bring people out. It was a political stunt I didn't appreciate the citizens of Kaysville were made to be pawns in a game.
All right. Thank you, Sherry.
Thank you, Sherry.
All right. Again, if you'd like to speak, you can raise your hand. If you are not on a computer and you're on a phone, it is *9. So if anybody would like to speak, they can raise their hand or hit *9. Councilmember Barber, did you have something?
It just looks like Mindy Smith, I believe, has been unmuted. Ryan, is that who was next?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
Mindy Smith, please.
Dear City Council and Mayor, thank you for taking the opportunity to listen to your citizens concerning the concert that was considered being held at Barnes Park. I implore you to consider when inviting various venues to Kaysville that they will adhere to social distancing and state health requests. Kaysville's population is greater than 30,000 with 17% of its residents 65 or older. There are many residents with immune compromised systems that would be at risk if safety precautions are ignored. The value of life cannot be measured by a monetary amount. A global pandemic has changed and affected lives of everyone in our hometown community. I feel the loss of the companionship of my neighbor and friends. I am a local elementary school teacher and miss teaching my students. I am looking forward to the day all businesses can operate at full capacity, families and friends can gather, and our schools can reopen. I am aware that life itself must take precedence over personal gain. If our city is concerned for the welfare of local businesses, please consider creating a plan to provide a safe shopping venue where social distancing measures can be maintained. Please continue to represent our community while planning, looking to the future with hope and promise for a better tomorrow. I am grateful for your leadership and would be glad to follow to help repair the economic damage to our town. Our frontline workers would be greatly affected by a venue with thousands of attendees disregarding the health guidelines in place for our state. Please continue to send a message to our police force, delivery services, firemen, and medical staff that their lives have value. And we will
30
continue to
seconds.
move forward with the recommended health guidelines. I hope to see my parents survive this pandemic. They have lived in Kaysville for 48 years and value the love and kindness and home pride they have felt while living in Kaysville. May we continue to send a message to our children, elderly, frontline workers, and immune-compromised members that their life has meaning. I would gladly follow a safe plan provided by our city council and mayor. Thank you, those of you that came forward and stood for the citizens of Kaysville. I appreciate you keeping our community safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Mindy.
Thank you, Mindy.
And Anne Marie, I think since there is not a huge crush, let's give everybody 3 minutes again. Okay. All right. If you would like to speak, if you could raise your hand. And if you are on a phone, it is *9 to raise your hand. Okay. Amy Stevens.
Mute. Can you
There we
hear
go.
me?
Yes, we can. Thank you, Amy.
Okay. I just wanted to mention before I start that my husband is also a frontline worker, and he's still sleeping in the guest room of the basement to protect our family. Sorry. I thought this would be read, but I think we have to read it. So here's what I wrote. Mayor Witt, I want you to know that as a representative of Kaysville, sorry, I'm going to get it together. You should be concerned that in turn for publicity for your political campaign, you have hurt the great people of Kaysville. Our councilmen and women have been trashed, along with our citizens, as gangster-like people who hate small business and the Constitution. This could not be further from the truth. Many of us share your same political views and support the very same candidate for president that you do. We are pro-freedom, pro-opening up, pro-small business. At the same time, we also feel it is crucial at this time to not be overly cautious and overly careless. Those were your exact words released in a statement in regards to why the pickleball courts would remain closed. This was 2 weeks before you did a 180, threw all caution to the wind, and announced the Colin Ray concert. This stunt was full of deception. It was released that there would be 600 to 800 people in attendance, although Malto, however you say his name, made it clear that there would be more. He said at their first event, there were a couple thousand people, and at the second, 5,000 or 6,000, and they expected it to grow by the thousands. I am a rule follower. I am also a conservative. I believe permits are gathered for a reason. Possibly the reason City Council has to approve events like this before permission is granted is because this allows for a discussion to take place where the ups and downs can be considered. Politicians are elected by we the people, and you are elected to represent your constituents, the people of Kaysville. The UBR is now publicly trashing the great city of Kaysville and planning to host a protest in Barnes Park. Although this time the spirit of the protest, I fear, is anti-Kaysville. What an awful message to send to our overwhelmingly conservative, wonderful city of Kaysville. I hope you will apologize and take blame personally for the bad judgment instead of pushing it off on the councilmen and women that have listened to their constituents and tried to do the will of the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Let's
Thank you.
have
Thank you, Amy.
Nephi Harvey, please.
Hello, this is Nephi Harvey. I'd just like to commend the City Council for being consistently against this from the beginning, despite Katie Witt the mayor of Kaysville and candidate for Congress, publicly demeaning them and their intentions consistently through this process. I'm really frustrated and disgusted by this. Mayor Katie Witt, like so many others that you've brought together that I never thought would be on the same side of anything through this process, I and others would ask you to step down. If you're going to run for Congress, run for Congress. Don't bring Kaysville into the mess. Don't bury us along with you. If you're going to run for Congress, run for Congress. If you're going to be our mayor, be our mayor. But if you're going to be our mayor, do that. Do nothing else. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nephi.
All right,
Thank you.
next. Okay, the other hand up is just a phone number. So let's bring them on and they'll have to introduce themselves.
Hi, my name is Kimberly Morrison. I would like to publicly thank our city council members for standing up to the Utah Business Revival organization, to Mayor Witt, and to the media. They represented Kaysville residents' opinions and were dedicated to keeping us safe and protecting our rights. I feel it's important to go on record why many citizens of Kaysville were against the Colin Ray concert being organized for May 30th, 2020. These reasons should be considered and remembered for events that might be proposed in the future. Many individuals and businesses have sacrificed to get to the stage Utah is currently in. Having a concert disregards all of that sacrifice by ignoring the government recommendations that businesses are currently following. Utah has been nationally recognized as a state that is more prepared than others to open fully due to our numbers, testing availability, and economy. We should not disregard the plan now and risk all of the progress that we've made. We agree that people should have free speech, but when it puts other people's lives at risk, that is not okay. This pandemic is real and people die. We will not stop the spread entirely, but if we're reckless, we put more people at risk. The concert had the potential to take Davis County back to orange if the number of COVID-19 cases increased. Having one night of fun that could create more weeks of struggling for businesses and individuals is not worth it. The concert was planned illegally without permits. Preparation is needed for traffic, police, medical personnel, etc. The group organizing this did not plan to do any of it legally. Mayor Witt was pushing the concert forward for publicity because she is running for Congress. Using her authority and position of power as mayor for her personal benefit is not acceptable. Using taxpayer resources, our park, our bathrooms, our power, our police for an unapproved event is not okay. It takes money and personnel from other needs and therefore costs taxpayers money. Simply asking individuals to stay home from the event that don't want it doesn't solve the problem. That's not how a pandemic works. Gas station employees, fast food employees, police, medical providers, they cannot choose to avoid the mass group of people. They're forced to be there. And then Kaysville residents are later around people who were already exposed to the masses. It was advertised that the concert would have 600 to 800 people, but past gatherings by the organization planning the event have had 3,000 to 5,000 people. With a big name musician coming in, it was actually expected to have more than that. The organizing group has no concern for laws or police. They made several statements saying they would not follow social distancing guidelines, and no one, including police, could stop them.
30
Having a
seconds.
mass gathering organized by people with sentiments against the police and their authority is a danger for everyone. Thank you for letting me express my concerns and those of many other residents.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. If you'd like to speak, raise your hand. All right, Mike Flood, please.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight. First, I want to point out the irony that we're still doing online Zoom meetings, which make it even more difficult, particularly for the older generation in our community, which is, as someone pointed out before, 17% of our population have less, they have a harder time accessing things online and they're not tech savvy, but we're still having city council meetings here when we've been able to elevate through the orange or through the yellow directives to smaller or to larger gatherings. and the fact that we're considering some pretty important issues this way, in my mind, is wrong. I think it's also very concerning that the city is pursuing the fiber argument, the fiber proposal during a time when when the economy is in dire straits and could possibly be heading further down. I want to point out, I emailed to you all yesterday, and I hand delivered to Mayor Witt and to Council Member Barber, who is Mayor Pro Tem, a letter from several residents regarding the calling for censure, resignation, and/or removal by state statute of Mayor Witt from her position as our mayor. I want to read from the resolution that we drafted and proposed and submitted, her violations of our code of conduct. To me, it wasn't about the concert. It was about her desire to subvert any kind of required process and policy that the city has because she's the mayor. Kaysville City Code of Conduct, acting in the public interest, recognizing that stewardship of the public interest must be their primary concern. Members will work for the common good of the people of Kaysville and not for any private or personal interest. Boom. Number 2, comply with the law. Members shall comply with the laws of the nation, the state of Utah, and the city of Kaysville in the performance of their public duties. These laws include, but are not limited to, city policies and procedures. Boom. 3, conduct of members. The professional and personal conduct of members must be above reproach and avoid the very appearance of impropriety. Boom. Mayor Witt, you have spent the last 3 years working in our city to create directives, policies, procedures, gavel poundings, and yet when it comes
30
time
seconds.
to show your true stripes, it's not about the Constitution. It was all about your congressional race. I'm all about opening up the economy, but I also believe in the rule of law and the responsibility to follow policy and procedure. And you, madam, did not. And I ask for you to resign and/or the city council to consider having you removed by state statute. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
Brecken Cook, please.
Hello. Thank you, City Council members, for demonstrating that I can still have trust in our republic and that the voice of the people is represented when we often get faced with situations that make us lose confidence in the way that our government was set up and the Constitution that it is meant to uphold is used inappropriately and not the way that I have interpreted it. So thank you for giving a little civics lesson in my home. I'm sure my kids wish we had our last couple days back, but we were happy to participate and see that we could make a difference and keep our community safe. Thank you.
Thanks, Brecken.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Again.
Okay. If you would like to speak, please raise your hand. It's *9 if you're on the phone. Kelly Van Noy, please. Are you there?
She's still muted.
Okay, can you?
And it's, there we go. Yep.
Okay, so my name is Shelley.
Shelley.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mayor Witt, you're probably not going to remember, but I actually called you on Saturday
Yes.
about this. Okay, I just, I didn't have anything prepared, but are you prepared to respond to anything that has been brought up at this point? Anything I've heard has been in the media, or it's been online, or it's been from other people. So is this the appropriate time? I would just like to hear your response to some of these.
This time is set aside for residents to communicate, and we don't respond. So all this time is yours.
Okay.
That's why it was so great that you called me the other day.
Okay. Well, just as a citizen of Kaysville, I agree with all of the previous statements that have been put out there. I really would hope and implore you to listen to the citizens of this city, and just take note of what we're saying. This is not a fight that I believe that we need to bring to our city. So I just am asking you to listen to your citizens that you represent.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shelley.
Kelly.
Thank you. You're muted, Mayor Witt.
I was in the audience for a minute there. So if anybody would like to speak, you can raise your hand. If you are on your phone, it is *9.
Mayor Witt, I think there was some confusion. I know some people thought by submitting their comments that they would be read out loud in this forum.
Right.
I know we all read they came to us, but I wonder if there's time, if it would be appropriate to have Anne-Marie read some of those.
You know, we spoke about this earlier in a meeting, and I felt that administration felt that that was not necessary. But if you would like to pull them up and read them, you may. Let's allow David Bowman to speak.
Thank you, I appreciate it. I wanted to support Councilman Barber in the statement that printed on the city website in methods of how to communicate and express a statement. It was specifically stated that if you email the written statement, it would be read aloud during the council meeting comment time. So it should be supported and it should be read. It was written and received directly back confirmation that it would be done that way.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I will just say that there's no way that we're going to be able to read all the comments that we received. Our community has been very generous in sharing their time in sending in comments about this. So let's allow Jessica Rawson to speak now, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. Please forgive me. I did not have prepared a statement, but if there's time, I would like to speak on 2 issues. First, I would like to just speak to the issue of fiber, and I would like to raise my hand in support of all the hard work that Mayor and the council and the fiber committee have done. I'm really, really excited about this for our community, and really impressed with the way they responded to citizens' concerns. And I hope to see this project move forward. I just want to give a big thank you to everyone who has worked so hard on that. Secondly, I'd like to echo the comments that I've heard in this meeting. I had all the same concerns about the safety of the event, not only with COVID, but also with police force and our first responders. It was not an event that I felt comfortable as far as it being well planned and thought out ahead of time. And I think that our citizens deserve to have these events held in a safe and appropriate manner. I'm particularly concerned that with the issue of permitting, and I think about all of the businesses in our community that have gone to great extent to comply with these new guidelines. Distancing within their buildings, all of the extra PPE and sanitation. Our businesses have gone to great extent, and our citizens have sacrificed personally to accommodate these different restrictions. And so the idea that we could hold an event that didn't meet those same guidelines was especially frustrating to me. And it made me feel that if there was no enforcement of that for a private event, why should any other business or resident
30 seconds
be held to the same standard? So as a citizen, I was particularly frustrated that there didn't seem to be any way to enforce these codes to prevent the event from occurring. And I do feel like that was an abuse of power from the government or from the mayor, using her position of power for a personal or political event without going through the proper channels. So thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica.
All right.
Thank you.
So,
Question.
it looks like some of the emails, at least that came in, are titled, or the subject line under them is public comment versus maybe just emails that we've received over the last 6 days. I wonder if those are the ones, maybe Ryan or someone could clarify if those are the ones that people actually clicked on the link from the, and I think there aren't too many of those. I mean, I think if we have time, those would be the ones maybe that would be read, if I'm correct.
Sure.
Mayor, if I could.
Yes, go ahead.
Sylvia went to the effort of being online, raising her hand. I would read her comment to start off.
Please. Yep.
Dear council members of Kaysville City, as a longtime resident of Kaysville City, I am disturbed by the recent news about Mayor Witt's support of a concert at Barnes Park in our city on May 30th. Not only is it unlawful considering the stage we are at in the worldwide pandemic and the risk it would also be to hold such an event in our community with over 100 attendees is not only reckless, but it showed that Katie Witt was willing to risk the health of our community for her gain attention for the United States House of Representatives District 1 position she is seeking. This was clearly a political stunt. For those of the many members of our community who have underlying health conditions that could result in serious health issues and possibly death. Even for those not attending the event, those who attend and live in our community could spread this horrific virus later as we interact with them at the grocery store, church, and other public gatherings. I hereby request the resignation of Katie Witt as mayor of Kaysville City. The residents of the city no longer have the trust in her leadership, as she was willing to risk the health of our community for her personal aspirations. She is no longer fit to serve as mayor. Thank you, Kaysville resident Sylvia Haro.
Okay. Does somebody have another one to read?
I have one from Keith Larson.
Okay.
I understand that the circus is moving to Tooele County and running afoul of the same state regulation that applied here in Davis County. I am hoping that this proclamation agenda item remains on the agenda for tonight's meeting. In her comments even today, the mayor continues to not acknowledge any governing law outside of her own skewed interpretation of the Constitution. That stance is appalling for the executive of this city, who is charged and bound to execute the laws and regulations of the city, county, state, and country. It is therefore critical for the proclamation to be discussed and acted upon to bring to a formal conclusion this sad event.
Thank you. Councilmember Adams, do you have one to read?
You know, I don't know what order we're reading these in. I guess as they came in, the first one that I see came in on Friday from Richard and Julie Bell. We are extremely concerned about a proposed large gathering right now in the middle of a pandemic, the one planned at Barnes Park in May. We live in Fruit Heights, about 9 blocks east of Kaysville City Hall. This seems nuts to give the virus a place to spread in mass gatherings at this time. Whether Mayor Witt wishes to play to her Trumpian instincts, it will have direct impact on us, on all of us in the Layton, Kaysville, Farmington, and Fruit Heights communities. We think this is highly irresponsible and personally dangerous to our family. Please do not allow this to go forward at this time. Thank you, Richard and Julie Bell.
Thank you, Richard and Julie. Mayor, you're muted.
That's because my dogs are barking. Any other? Carson Robb has raised his hand, so we'll allow him to speak, please.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. I had the wonderful opportunity of being a part of a filming event earlier in August for one of Mayor Witt's campaign videos, and I saw the true love for the Constitution that she has and the care that she has. And that's why I was just so absolutely devastated by the tyrannical decision that she was trying to make for her own political gain. And just wanted to share a brief experience. I am doing still online classes at BYU, and I'm in a local governments class with about 100 other poli-sci majors. And we used Kaysville as a perfect example for one whole hour as what an unethical local leader looks like. And that was what our professor decided to pick. And I was absolutely embarrassed to live in Kaysville at that moment. I was so sad that I'd been a part of an event. And I just realized that that was a fake conservative of our mayor, that she would be willing to risk the lives of our police officers. And I actually called Chief Oberg and talked to him, and he said that this was, quote, thrown in his lap. And I just wanted to ask, really, if you claim to be not only a conservative, but a lover of the Constitution, does that not also make you a lover of the rule of law? That's what I believe. And I really, really just hope that that's what other people believe as well. And it was kind of interesting. The professor did ask if anyone was from Kaysville, and I did raise my hand in that Zoom call as well. And he said, what's the reaction up there? And I said, well, just by what I can see, and I know I see different groups differently, but, it's not very good. And he just said, well, I hope you go and speak your own mind, that you tell them that this was the most unconservative thing that anyone could ever do. And that's what I wanted to do. And just say how embarrassed I was, and that I just support the city council and their idea of this proclamation. Everything that they choose to do, I stand behind them, and I know they speak for me and for others and for my family. And I know exactly who I will not vote for in this congressional run. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Carson.
Thank you, Carson.
Thank you, Carson.
Okay, do we have another, any other hands up? Sarah Johnson, please.
Hello. I just wanted to start off by saying thank you so much to those who are being kind and positive. And I also want to thank Michelle Barber, because when I reached out to her, she personally called me back, and I could feel the humility and kindness within her. And I feel like that demonstrates true leadership, by being humble and willing to listen to all viewpoints. While I realize that this is a difficult position for our entire city leadership group, I hope to offer a differing view than what has been said. After all, Benjamin Franklin said that if we all think alike, then no one is thinking. In an effort to stay objective and reasonably minded, I have read as many articles and listened to our mayor and city council on as many interviews as I could. I would like to point out that I believe our mayor has handled the discord and cruelty amongst our citizens with grace and professionalism. I have sat back and watched in awe and horror as people I once looked up to as kind, magnanimous individuals have used cruel and divisive language that has just fed what our nation is going through right now towards one another and towards people who think differently. I have been ashamed to call myself a Kaysville resident, not because of our leadership, but because of our citizens. Yes, mistakes were made. No, that does not give the general public a ticket to attack as a mob with pitchforks. Put away your claws and go and do something good for your neighbor. Let's move past this, okay? I also believe that great leadership is shown when there is a willingness to adapt and change. And I appreciate the mayor's willingness to listen to another viewpoint, change her mind, and then follow through by giving trust and personal responsibility back to her people and listening to them. We don't know what is going on behind the scenes. So as the general public, we have no right to be so cruel. Please, Kaysville, let's get ourselves together and be kind. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Sarah.
Sarah.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank
Jason Sanders, please.
Yes, thank you very much. I had not planned to speak today, but I just thought it was ironic that our mayor decided to hold a concert in our town in the name of freedom of speech, despite various laws and rules and regulations to the contrary. And then today, during this city council meeting, is not willing to listen to a lot of our residents who had followed the rules and laws of our city, allowing them to send in comments to be read. I believe her comment was, "There's no way we're going to allow those to be read." I just find that very ironic, and I wanted to point that out. And it's really just disturbing to me as a Kaysville resident to see this kind of behavior, to see our city being mocked and laughed at throughout the state of Utah. Friends from across the country have seen it on USA Today and have asked, what is going on in your little town? It's sad. It shouldn't come to this. And it is bothersome. I would, however, like to thank many of the citizens. It's unfortunate that it took an incident like this to bring a lot of people together. I would like to disagree heartily with the previous comments that I found that there's a lot of people that I've been on opposite sides of various political perspectives. I have now found myself being quite friendly with them and on the same side, and that made me very happy. And so I'm kind of grateful on one hand that this happened, so I could figuratively shake hands with many of my fellow residents, and we can all agree on something for once. So for what it's worth, thank you to the citizens for coming together against this, but I'm still appalled at the behavior of the mayor wanting to do something for free speech and yet limiting speech, Kaysvillian speech, the people who she should be representing tonight, when that shouldn't have happened. She should have known what the rules were and should have allowed those statements to be read out loud. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
Angie Archibald, please. You there, Angie?
Jordan, she's still muted.
All right. Are you there, Angie? Angie? Okay. All right.
I have two public
Go ahead.
comments. Three.
Go ahead.
I think they're good because another one that brings up a differing perspective that should be heard. This one is from Ryan Black. As a Kaysville resident, I support our right to free assembly, freedom of speech, and freedom of expression. If an individual is concerned about gathering publicly, they are welcome to stay home. But one person's fears should not infringe on my rights and the rights of others. We are competent adults who are capable of making our own decisions and dealing with the corresponding consequences, be what they may. We do not need a nanny state telling us what to do and where to go. Individuals who are high risk and immunocompromised are invited to self-quarantine, as has been the case always with any sickness, but let's not infringe upon the rights of the majority just to appease the minority. Fear is not a justification for losing freedoms. I support the concert moving forward. Ryan Black.
Thank you.
And then I have another, if we can. And I know we won't get to all of them, so I was trying to give a diverse perspective the best I can. Here's the next one, Sarah Mickelson. Now that the event is moved, I do not feel we need to continually debate this topic. However, I hope we can all learn from this experience. The position of mayor is one that is to uphold the Constitution. One should not pick and choose which amendments to follow. If the first is to be defended, so should the 10th. If the mayor disagrees with the rules put in place by the state regarding COVID, then use proper channels to legally ask for justification. I would like to say that what happens from today forward will define you more than what happened in the past. However, to my knowledge, the decision to move the event was not your doing. Had it been your doing, had you decided that maybe you jumped the gun and maybe the decision you made was not appropriate, then canceling it would have shown a great strength in your character. We are not perfect, but how we right our wrongs can really show who we are. I believe as a city, we can support the businesses in need. I believe we have great citizens who genuinely care about this city and want to see people and businesses succeed. Let's use this opportunity to address the real issue and find ways to support the businesses in Kaysville who need support. Let's ask the businesses what they need, check in on the citizens, and see how we can help. To show support and knowing they are not alone might be all that they need right now. If they need more, let's figure out how to support them. As the mayor and city council of Kaysville, this can be a great opportunity for you to create a sense of calm and comfort to those who have fears created around this situation. As a parent does to a child, you can put aside your own feelings and fears and soothe the fears of those whom you serve. Whether the fear is of one losing a job, losing the business, getting the virus, losing a family member to the virus, or even having their rights taken away, this can be a great opportunity for you to serve those who have a responsibility towards and create calm instead of inside controversy. Let's help solve the problem, not contribute to it. I appreciate the way the council has handled this situation. Serving in public office can be a very thankless job. You will never please everyone. I do not envy you. Regardless of what your original part in this event may have been, I appreciate you supporting the citizens and being their voice. Sarah Mickelson.
Okay, thank you. I think we have time for one more before we finish our public comment period. Right, any more to be read?
I'm not muted, am I? I've got one.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, this is from John Lasker. Did we read this one? No, okay. Well, I wouldn't plan on attending. It is a plus to have some sort of outside activity to break this sequestration. I did have an idea that could provide another benefit for these types of activities. The organizers, UBR, should temporarily fence the area where the concert is to be held. Then they would set up an online website where attendees could pre-register by name, address, and phone number. They would agree to wear face masks and practice safe distancing. They would be giving a barcode. UBR would also staff the entry point and scanners to check in arrivals and take their temperature. They would also staff another entry point where non-registered people's information could be collected. After the concert, they could provide a file of attendees to the Davis County Health Department so we could track those people if they develop COVID-19 symptoms. Thank you, John and Lasker.
All right, thank you. All right, I think we are, we have completed our public invited to be heard for this evening, and we will have about a 5-minute break before we resume with our city council meeting officially.
Can you hear me, Ryan? Yeah, I can hear you, Mike.
Okay, you turned the video off, right?
Yeah, you'll just need to turn it back on.
Okay. I'll have to turn it back on?
Yeah, you just need to do that. You can do that right now.
It tells me I can't. It says you cannot start video because host has disabled it.
Try it now.
All right. I don't know if it's working or not.
It is.
All right. You got to give me a couple extra seconds for everybody else.
Doing great, Mike.
Yeah.
We're glad to give you that couple extra seconds. Okay. All right, I think we are ready. All right, I'd like to welcome everybody to our May 21st, 2020 City Council meeting. This meeting is being held electronically, and if you would like, we are glad to receive any comments via email at publiccomment@kaysvillecity.com. All right, first thing we're going to do is have our opening provided by Councilmember Tammy Tran. Who might not be back yet.
Mayor, she was going to switch devices, so just
Okay.
give her 1 minute here.
All right.
Councilmember Blackham, you are not muted, just so you know.
Am I making noises?
No, I just didn't want you to hop on and then mute yourself when you start talking.
Okay.
Oh, you're just saving me.
Okay.
Oh, there I am.
All right. Okay. We would like to welcome everybody to our May 21st, 2020 City Council meeting. And we will first have our opening provided by Councilmember Tran.
Okay. Our dear Heavenly Father, we are grateful for this opportunity to be able to serve as City Council members for Kaysville. We ask you to please bless us that we will do so with wisdom and compassion and patience and understanding. We ask you to please bless us throughout the country, that we'll be comforted and blessed and protected as we face this pandemic together. We ask you to please bless us that we will come together as a community and be united in our desires to do all that we can for our community. We're grateful for the freedoms that we enjoy in this country that we live in, and we say this in the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen.
Okay. Do you want to lead us in the pledge, Councilmember Tran? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
And
And
to the
to
the
republic
republic for which
for
it
which it
stands,
stands,
one nation,
under
under
God,
God, indivisible,
with
with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right. The first thing that we're going to do this evening is a fun thing. We're going to recognize our graduating seniors from Youth City Council. I would like to turn the time over to Mayor Pro Tem Barber to read their names.
Hello, this is a very bright spot in our meeting today, and it's a little bit strange in these circumstances. I would love to welcome all these wonderful youth of our city council here. Some of them were going to hop on the meeting, and I'm not sure if they made it on, but we have some seniors who are graduating after giving great service to our city on our youth city council, and
I can just say our future is bright, and a huge thank you to all of them. They were just as disappointed as any of us were that they didn't get to do their final last events with our city, but I've promised them that we will take alumni in years to come. So huge thank you. I will just read off their names so we know who's graduating and how much they've served for. Our current mayor is Marcus Hayden, after 2 years of service and an incredible job as mayor. And so Marcus, thank you. Thank you very much. We have Camille Jepson after 3 years of service and also served this past year as our mayor pro tem. Claire Scott after 2 years. Gracie Rasmussen, 2 years. Soraya Francis, 1 year. Cooper Davis, 1 year. David Hayes, 1 year. And also Allie Layton after 1 year. Oh, and there they all are. But a huge thank you to them. We have some plaques that we usually are presenting, and I'm going to personally deliver them when they get here and extend a huge vote of thanks to them. And we will, for anyone watching, we're going to be putting out information on how to apply for this coming year. And we're looking for just more of these bright youth who want to come and get involved in our community. So huge thank you to them.
Thank you so much to our city council members. All right. The next presentation that we're going to have some presentations by folks who have put in bids. So who do I turn this over to? Shane?
Mayor, I'm happy to introduce this if I may.
All right, Councilmember Barber.
Just to bring everybody up to speed, how we got here and what we're doing. Obviously, we all know we've been working on this project for 2+ years, and there's been a lot of learning and growth. And one of the commitments we made at the end of 2019 was to put our previous plan aside and work together on a new plan that met the needs of residents that we've heard. There's 3 top things that you'll see all over the website and that we're remembering. And I will quickly say it's that you get to vote, you only pay if you want, and you'll know what it costs. Those 3 key points. And so that's what was put out to ask for proposals for how to build, how to go about that and how to build that. And that's the RFP process that we talk about sometimes. And one of the things we heard last year was that residents wanted to be part of this process. They wanted transparency in it. And so we issued this RFP like the city usually does, with the note that all responses would be published and made available to residents, which we have done. That was a big request we heard last year as well. And that the scoring, how we decide on them, will also be very transparent. And that's what you're getting to be part of tonight. I think it's really exciting. I'm glad there's so many people here. And so this is the opportunity for the top 2 bidders to come and present to City Council. There's nothing else, no action being taken tonight. We actually will have a work item at our next City Council meeting, and then followed by an action item to award the bid. And that's going to leave plenty of time for residents to engage with elected officials and work on this process together. And very quickly, someone might be saying, well, why are we awarding a bid now if we're going to vote on it? And that is a good question. Very good question. That 3rd point that I said about knowing what it costs, this is the process of finding out what it is going to cost, is getting these actual very detailed bids. And they all knew, maybe the proposals can speak to it, that the award of the bid is contingent on the public vote for the entire project in November 2020. So it's coming up. And if the vote passes, the project and funding will move forward. If it doesn't, this project and funding will be set to the side and not pursued any further. So I hope that's a good introduction. Councilmember Lortz, is there anything else I missed? All right, thank you so much.
All right. Okay.
Jason, I think we're ready.
Are you ready for us? Okay.
All right.
Mayor, Council, thank you for your time. My name is James Salter. We're calling you from Atlanta, Georgia. We've listened to the concerns of the last hour. We don't have a stance on any of the concerns, but we'll tell you we're calling you from the most open state in America, and we're in the same room together. So for what that's worth. So thank you for the opportunity to present to you tonight. We want to tell you a little bit about our company and our proposal to the city of Kaysville. We applaud you for considering trying to bring advanced broadband to your citizens, and we hope that your citizens will see fit to let the city lead the effort to make that happen. Ryan, I guess you're doing the slides?
Yes, I am. I have the slides ready.
Okay. So our name of our company is Atlantic Engineering Group. It goes by AEG for short. And again, we're an Atlanta-based company. Our niche is municipal fiber to the home. It's essentially what we've done for 80% of our entire history. I came from a municipal background. I'm a municipal utility electrical guy. Started the company 25 years ago with the idea of serving municipals for telecom. And so that's what we've done. So in the last 20 years or so, all we've basically done is fiber to the home for municipalities. So we do sort of turnkey services. We do it all with our own folks. We have in-house engineering. We have in-house construction. It's real typical for us to engage with cities that have never been in the telecom business. So we, by necessity, in order to try to become an advocate for them, have had to be sort of soup to nuts, including contract operating networks for them. So over the last 20 years or so, we've built 60 fiber to the home networks that represent about 2.5 million homes, 50,000 miles of fiber. So we're real fiber guys. We're anti-wireless guys, as we're not anti-Wi-Fi, but we're anti-wireless as the sort of broadband choice. And we understand the market and what y'all are trying to accomplish. We have engineering offices. Even though we're based in Atlanta, Georgia, we're not a regional company at all. We follow the market all around the U.S. and actually internationally as well. We have an engineering office in Kansas City, one in Austin, Texas. And then we're a project-based company. So our construction project offices sort of follow where we're in the construction. Currently, we're in Colorado, Iowa, Tennessee, New York, and Maryland. These are some of the municipal, well, not all of these are municipal, but the majority of these are municipal fiber to the home deployments that we've done around the country in the last 20 years. So, we're an Atlanta-based company, so we've done an awful lot in the Southeast. Sort of west of the Mississippi, I think we've done about 20 cities. In the great state of Utah, we designed and built the original Provo network, and we thought that they had a good idea with the open access and sort of the limitations that the Utah legislation put on them, and they gave it their all. We built it on time and on budget, and then we sort of helped them find a buyer later. We were Google Fiber's first contractor. We built Kansas City, Kansas, which was Google Fiber's first city, and then of course they bought Provo, and we rebuilt Provo for Google Fiber. So currently out west, we're building Fort Collins, Colorado, which is where Colorado State is, about 80,000 homes. Again, we work all over the country. I will say, if you look at this list of about 50 cities, most of these cities have chosen a retail service provider option. because the legislation will allow it, and they think that's given them the best chance of serving their citizens. About 5 or 6 of these have been open access networks. Grant County, Washington, up in the state of Washington, where they don't have to worry about money because they own the output of the Grand Coulee Dam. Provo, of course. Danville, Virginia is one. North Kansas City, Missouri was one. So we've got open access experience, and we sort of understand the challenges of the open access model, and I think we can help you. We're family owned, self-funded, privately held, which we think is an advantage. It makes us pretty nimble. We don't have big corporate bureaucracy to go through. You're looking at the owner. So we can make decisions, and we can make them quickly. So we think that could be an advantage for the city. In 24 years and 100+ projects, we've never been in a courtroom. So we're handshake kind of guys. We're fierce advocates for municipalities. We don't play both sides. We've never worked for an incumbent against a municipal utility that wanted to try to improve the services for their citizens. I've sort of gotten the reputation, and our company's gotten the reputation of calling it straight, even when it's kind of tough to hear. We're a vendor agnostic company. We're not on any material vendor team. We kind of believe that engineering decisions ought to be about the city's network efficiency, not a materials vendor list, a material list. So that's who we are. Again, we've got an awful lot of experience in this arena, and candidly, when we initially replied to your RFP, we didn't know your history all that well. We've never had a relationship with anybody at Kaysville, so we were a little bit coming in cold, and we've learned an awful lot over the last 3 or 4 months while we've sort of prepared to try to assist you. And so it's been a little bit of a moving target for us, but we think we understand what you're all about at this point. Just a couple of slides about our actual proposal to Kaysville. We think at the end of the day, we'll be the least cost option for building your network. The issue about putting out an RFP and asking for a sort of a single line price is you got to make sure you're comparing apples to apples. We think when you do, you'll discover that our price is the lowest. So we wanted to be really crystal clear about that. And so we've sort of tagged on what our assumptions are right here on our price. And you can analyze that on your own. We certainly are willing to talk about that. One of the things we think is important for you for your system reliability is we would intend to have all of your electronics, which we would have at about a 500 home level. They would all be ringed with automatic throwover and backup power and those types of things, so that the reliability of your network is as high as it could possibly be. We're used to, as a company, sort of going into a town and there's no design and giving them a price, and then the city goes out and gets a bond, or if they have cash, they set aside the cash sort of before engineering. So we believe we've got a model that's fairly accurate on cost, and we're willing to stand behind our cost and set a guaranteed maximum price, basically no change orders ahead of time. So we think that might be an advantage for you as well. All right, Ryan. So that was on the construction of the network. On the operating and maintaining your network, it's not unusual for us to become a contract operator. Usually, we're only a contract operator for a year or two after we build the network. It's not as typical for us to be sort of a long-term contract operator because, again, most of our clients are retail service provider model. But it's certainly not new to us to be in that arena. We actually own, well, we just recently sold, we actually own our own ISP. It's called Atlantic Fiber Networks. So we've been an operator as owners in the past. So again, we sort of understand the back office and the call center and rolling trucks and satisfying customers. We've done it for our own networks in the past. And we sort of priced our O&M fees with the option that would build it from scratch and have a new presence in Kaysville. There might be opportunity for partnering with existing people, but the pricing that we gave you in our proposal assumed that we would start from scratch. Certainly, I don't mind saying that since y'all been, we applaud you for being so transparent about this whole process. And I guess since your short list has been published, every operator and ISP in Utah has been calling us wanting to be a partner. And we don't have a strong feeling about that, but I just want you to know that we priced it like we were building it from scratch. And the final thing I'd say is, assuming we can agree to what the subscriber-based fees need to be, we think your goal of 50% market share is achievable, but candidly, it's not easy. Utopia hadn't done it. Provo didn't do it. And so we think it's going to take some effort to get there. You've got a little bit different population base. So I think that'll help you with your market share. But we're willing to consider being a financial backstop on that if that's appropriate and makes sense for the city. So that's the gist of our proposal. We'd be delighted to entertain any questions about who we are or what it is we're proposing.
Thank you. All right. Councilmember Lortz, please.
Thank you. James, maybe you'd mentioned a little bit about coming in on time and on budget. Can you kind of give us an idea of how often your projects come in on time and on budget?
Well, I'll let you call about 60 of them and ask for yourself, but immodestly, I would say that it's real typical for us to come in on time and on budget. Usually the budget busters is not the things like rock or the things that most contractors sort of, lean on for additional fees. The budget busters in our experience has been if the city doesn't own something associated with the right of way, in particular, if we're building a city that doesn't own the poles and they're trying to build aerially, that's usually the budget buster, the make-ready construction and those kinds of things. In Kaysville, everything is pretty much a known. I mean, we have a real strong sense of, the geology and the rock, and we analyzed your city pretty in depth for sort of aerial underground splits and all of those kinds of things, and we think we've got it spot on to the point where we're willing to take the risk on the price.
And then also on your saying it'd be fast, I know we had asked for it to be done in at least, at most 36 months. What is your anticipation of how long it would take to build out the network within Kaysville and past the 9,500 premises?
It certainly wouldn't take 36 months. I mean, we're building, just to give you an illustrative, we're building Fort Collins, Colorado, that's 100% underground, 900 miles of plant, 80,000 homes in 30 months. So, Kaysville would be, 24 months would be a gracious plenty.
Thank you.
Thanks. Any other questions?
I just have one.
Thanks.
The question I have is based off of your fees. It looks like that's based on 4,500 customers. Is that your take rate?
Well, I mean, obviously the take rate's the risk variable. That was what we understood you were sort of basing your analysis on. Yes, I mean, candidly, that's why we use that number.
Yeah,
So it's a little
Councilman
less.
Blackham, this is on Councilman Lortz. We had made that assumption to equalize all of the proposals so that we price them all at a 50% residential adoption, 4,500 installations.
So you're assuming 9,000 residents. Is that what there is 9,000 residents? That seems
9,000 residences and 500 business buildings.
Okay. And so they're basing it off of the 4,500 customers right up front.
Throughout the construction. So in the first 2 or 3 years, yes.
Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Adams, please.
So I guess maybe you could help me understand what would, in layman's terms, if we don't reach that 4,500, you were saying you're going to try to
Councilman Adams,
backstop.
that'll be a discussion we have in the work item in the next meeting. We'll
Oh,
talk through all
fantastic.
the economics and how to choose which vendor. Yes.
Okay. And let's see, it's Jason or?
Well, I'm James. Jason,
James.
I don't know how he got in there with you, but Jason is our engineering manager.
Oh, okay. All right.
He's in Denver, Colorado.
Well, we've enjoyed your accent.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Councilmember Barber.
Thank you. I think one thing that will stand out to residents here particularly is the project that hits really close to home that was just south of us, your Provo project. I think that'll raise a lot of question because it's been pretty publicly known about that did not go as far as planned. So can you talk to me about how this project will be different?
Well, I think two things will be different. I mean, it's been a while. So Provo was, they didn't want to use the word pioneer, but in fact they were sort of the pioneer into the game. And at the time, since the incumbents would not use the network, which I don't know whether they will in Kaysville or not, but the ISPs were sort of very small, sort of underfunded, ma and pa type of ISPs. So there wasn't even though the technology was much better, the service level wasn't, exponentially better. That's number one. Number two is it's a college town with a lot of MDUs and contracts on those MDUs. And it was hard for them to get market share because, all those apartment complexes were sort of locked up by the incumbents. So you don't have that problem.
That the ISPs are local, established, reputable ISPs right around Utah have been reaching out to you guys and are excited to be part of this project. That was exciting to hear.
They have, yeah.
Okay. Any other
Thank you.
questions? Okay. Okay. I don't see anyone. Okay, it looks like I don't have any further questions. Any final comments?
Well, just thank you for your time and really good luck with it. I hope the citizens will see fit to do this project. And if we're fortunate enough, we'd be delighted and blessed to help you. But whatever you decide, good luck. We don't want to see anybody.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you, guys.
Mayor, just give us a minute here to switch over to Corning. Okay, thank you, Mary. I think we have everybody on now.
All right. Thank you so much. Who do I turn it over to?
Greg Lentz, please.
Greg.
Yes, thank you for your time this evening, council members and mayor. We definitely appreciate the opportunity. My name is Greg Lentz. I am the market development manager with Corning, and on behalf of the team we've put together of Connext and Graybar, as well as SA Corning, I'm pleased to introduce this team responsible for this proposal. Ryan, we have just this one slide, so there'll be no advancement. And I just wanted to start off the top and say that if the council members or the mayor aren't familiar with necessarily the telecom space and may not instantly recognize some of our company names, I wanted to assure you that we're among the upper echelon of players in the fiber to the home space, and we're going to keep our comments short so that we can entertain as many of your questions as possible from either yourselves or the constituents that you've heard from. David Brown, if you would please introduce, your team at Connext, and then Chad Smith, and then I'll follow with Corning.
Yeah, I been in the area, been a service provider in the area for about 20 years. Very familiar with Kaysville City and the workings of what you've been doing and what's been going on. We also have been an ISP, but we've been really pushing towards being even an open network ourselves. So I'm the CEO. My brothers are also owners in the company. We have quite a few employees, and we actually range from operations to an ISP to the construction side of it. So we're a local group that has a lot of experience related to fiber and telecommunications and making sure everything runs smoothly.
Thanks, David. Appreciate that. Chad, would you take a moment and introduce Graybar and the strengths that you bring into this teaming agreement?
You bet. I'm a local resident. I've lived in Kaysville most of my life. Currently living on Fruit Heights, though, just a few blocks away. I was involved with Kaysville City in the installation of their fiber ring. I worked with Connext on that project. In Utah, I worked on almost all of the fiber to the home projects, starting from City of Spanish Fork, iProvo, Utopia, Google Fiber, and also I work with all the telephone companies throughout the state. We have 2 stocking locations here, one in Salt Lake City, one in Orem, and we specialize in fiber to the home materials.
Thank you, Chad. I appreciate that. On the Corning team, we have Tom Nyman, who's our regional sales engineer, and he lives in Montana. Blake Landrum is our lead for our engineering services group, who would be overseeing engineering and construction. And Kara Malali and I are in our market development group, ensuring that the components that go into your network are the components that are going to be best for your needs. Corning is an industry leader in both material science and manufacturing, and we've got a long storied history of more than 160 years of innovation. We leverage the decades of our optical innovation and experience to deliver industry-leading quality fiber optic cable and optical hardware components. Here in the United States, we utilize a network of contractors, installers, and technicians to place our solutions, and we've done so across the country. Frankly, we've done so globally, passing more than 50 million homes worldwide. We build robust, long-lasting networks, and we do that through our engineering services group. We've supported fiber builds in every region of the world, and so our experience and our breadth of product portfolio allows us to identify the products that are best suited for your needs and for the products that are going to be reliable for decades to come. Ultimately, we believe that a high quality fiber network is essential to more than just the broadband that the residents would like to see. We envision this network being able to support essential city services, smart city applications, public Wi-Fi, as well as enabling the citizens to telework, to access healthcare remotely, do distance education, support e-commerce. And as well, we believe that the teaming of our three companies really provides the city with experience, financial stability, high quality products, local support, and innovative technology that will allow your network to grow with the times for the years to come. So on behalf of everyone here on the call this evening, we welcome your questions and we look forward to supporting your needs as you make your decisions here over the next few weeks. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Questions from council. Andre, Councilmember Lord, sorry.
No worries. So Greg, going to give you the same questions. Give me an idea on your projects. How often are you coming in on time and on budget for these projects?
Thank you for that question. We, in this proposal, well, we pride ourselves in doing everything we can to come in on time and on budget every time. In this proposal, we've priced it in a way to where we believe we are just above what it will actually cost. We think there's some room not only in the negotiation phase, but in the actual installation and material selection to save some money. So our goal would be to be under budget and on time, or even a little early.
So then taking that, I'm saying this is kind of a not to exceed budget, but with opportunities for it to be lower. What are the risks that would drive it and have change orders to drive the cost higher than expected?
That we've discussed that for many, many hours here internally on this team. Some of us are a little more risk averse and some of us wanted to try to be a bit more competitive in the bid. The areas that we see would be most impactful to the costs going above where we are would be, the soil conditions and a lot of rock being there. We've made some assumptions about how much rock. It's essentially the same as the other group. It's about 10% is what we've assumed. And there's also the risk of the business connections. If there is a lot of hardscape that we would need to work around to get a business connection up, that potentially would escalate the costs there for those. But overall, I think that we're confident in our number that we could be at or below.
And then my next question, if you were listening, we've allotted for 36 months. What do you think it will take to complete the construction of the Kaysville network?
We believe far less than 36 months. We believe in the 18-month mark, maybe to 24 months, depending on the winter build schedule, and then recognizing any no build times that the city would want to, allocate for, the residents for there not to be construction crews out.
Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Adams.
And, this question may be also for Andre. You might be able to help us understand if this is going to be later in the work item. There weren't any costs presented on the slide. I guess I'm curious, do we have something, or are we going to present something that shows the difference between the two costs of the two folks?
Yes,
bid?
we will go through the two bids and what the proposals and the financials of each one of them, as well as then what it would look like for the citizens in bonding and service rates. So that'll be our work item discussions.
That's the next. Okay, fantastic. Yeah, that's my only question.
And if I may,
please,
we did not want to try to rehash costs on this call because of the guidance we would received. We really wanted to highlight the strengths of our individual companies, and we were informed that there'd be a working session to discuss those costs in more detail. And we stand ready to answer questions as they come up as you get into those types of discussions.
Okay. All right, council members, any more questions? Councilmember Tran, do you have a question? No? Okay.
If I may, this is Kara. I do, since perhaps you all haven't seen the financials yet, would like to just mention that one of the advantages that our pricing takes into consideration from an operations perspective is that our cost is per subscriber. That means that there's no annual fixed cost that's going to kind of drain on the network, you know, assuming a take rate that isn't necessarily there. It also means that our partner in this venture, Connext, is really more invested in the success of the network and will be driving as many, you know, consumer signups as possible. So that's just a little highlight I wanted to make.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Councilmember Barber, please.
First question for any of you is, talk to me about, instead of having one company submit a proposal, about the combination of having three. That's unique. And tell me about the process of bringing the three companies together and what that's going to mean for the full project.
Well, absolutely. So it's not unique for Corning to do this. There are some things that we do very, very well in our core competencies, being in, you know, the fiber manufacturing space, as well as the engineering and construction. When Chad with Gray Bar saw this opportunity, I think he looked at it and knew that he would not be able to do the whole thing himself or his organization. He reached out to us, and then the two of us talked through who would do the actual operation and maintenance of the network. And a very logical answer was David Brown and Connext. And so we spent about a week going over who would be in what lane for the different elements of this proposal. And we actually put together a framework, a teaming agreement to see that this would go smoothly. And we've all committed to this fiber build as a team, because ultimately we think that having fiber in your city is a very valuable use of money, and we would like to see it be as robust and efficient as possible. I don't know if Chad or David would like to chime in at all about their thoughts on the teaming agreement.
Yes, please.
I just loved the idea of bringing Corning in. I had never heard of a company that's higher up as far as materials go. Had a long-standing relationship with Chad with Gray Bar for logistics and those kinds of things. And then for us on the operations side, you know, I've had a lot of discussions before we, you know, got to the RFP point, just wanting to make sure that the network was protected and that the city would have the ability to take control or run the system as they wanted to. So we really thought the idea of having some pluggable pieces like this would give the city a little bit more flexibility in ensuring that they're getting the highest quality materials, and the ability to choose who they want as a network operator, or take over and be trained if needed to, and make sure they're getting the best materials and logistics. So we really kind of felt like it would be very hard for someone to come in and put all those pieces together under one umbrella.
Mayor,
Councilmember Tran.
I have a question. I was just wondering, as you've read through our RFP, you both companies have so much experience doing these projects. Have we missed anything? Is there anything that, you know, I know that they've done their homework and they've tried to include everything, but is there anything that stands out as potential problems or issues or challenges?
I'm going to take this one, Congresswoman. I think that, you know, I'm one of the more vocal people within our organizations about bridging the digital divide and making sure that fiber broadband is ubiquitous and available for residents no matter where they may live. And the only thing I would say you might want to consider is, what do you want your network to be 10 or 15 years from now? Because the greatest expense, honestly, in the construction of a network is digging the earth. And so if you think you want to invite a wireless service provider to provide 5G, if you think you're going to want to hook up your streetlights and security cameras and offer community Wi-Fi and do all manner of smart city things in your city, I would plan for that now and make sure that we're building it into the network that we build next year, so that you're not having to come back and rebuild 3 or 5 years from now. But otherwise, there was nothing that made me go, oh gosh, they're crazy. So I think you're good otherwise.
That's great.
Thank you. I have a follow-up question to that then. So what would we need to do to address those future issues or plans?
I think that it's really a scoping conversation around what types of public safety technology enablement do you want to have? If it's wireless technology, there are advances every day, every year in wireless technology in particular. And right now, the 5G networks that are being deployed are very, very fiber rich. And so some of the cities that the Verizons and the AT&Ts are looking to overbuild are just putting in monstrous size fiber cables. I think personally, a few years from now, we'll see that they'll have figured out a better way to transmit that information over single, pieces of glass instead of multiple pieces of glass. So I don't necessarily know that it means, upsizing the whole network to support these different initiatives, but I think just having a conversation around what potential types of applications you can run might lend themselves to a decision now to put in maybe some more sophisticated active electronic gear that can then, kind of combine all those different network signals onto the network that we're building. And if we need to surplus or upsize certain elements of the network to support, specific application use cases, then we can, provide feedback on what those may be.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I think that's one of the biggest questions, surrounding the fiber is, and it's really hard to know what's coming next, but we have an idea of what's coming next. Just wanted to make sure that whatever we do will accommodate that and it won't be obsolete and, as they say, in a little short time. So.
Yeah, and one of the things too, I know that there's a lot of question around whether different wireless services could deliver the same experience that a fiber-based network might. And so when your constituents are asked to vote on this, they might have doubt in their mind that a wireless network could deliver the same thing. And I will tell you that wireless networks have come a long way, but they're largely dependent on proximity to a node, line of sight to that node, and weather can also affect the attenuation or the loss of signal. And so they're just not nearly as robust. The glass that was put in the ground in the 70s is still in operation in most parts of the country. Many of those people put in small fiber count cables and they've been oversized and overbuilt many, many times over, but the glass is going to be good for you no matter how you shake it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Councilmember Adams.
Yeah, this kind of ties to the similar question that was asked earlier, but I guess, Mr. Lentz, have the three of you as companies worked together before on projects, or is this would be the first time, or I guess?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's the first time that the three of us together have worked together on a project. Corning and Gray Bar have a very long working relationship, and Gray Bar and Connext have a very good working relationship that has gone on for a number of years. So we are familiar with each other in those two distinct working relationships. Corning and Connext have not worked directly together before, but I would say that in the relationship that we've built in the sequencing of what would happen of, from approval to, engineering and design through basically turning the network over for David to operate, we've figured out and have communicated over the last month here how we would do that, and are very comfortable with where we all are in that and the relationship so far that we've built.
Great. Yeah. So it sounds like maybe each of you feel like specialized in the area that you represent. You've come together as specialists in each of those venues. Would that be true, David?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that, but we haven't worked specifically with Corning Engineering. We've used a lot of Corning project and fiber build, plant and fiber builds that we've done. So we are very familiar with what Corning is, what their materials are, how they go about building, and what they they use. So we have a familiarity, although we haven't worked with Greg Lenz.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other, Councilmember Lords, please.
So a couple of questions. One, Greg, can you tell us how many projects you've done for fiber to the premise? You said you've done them all around the world, but how many projects has Corning Engineering done?
It would be tough to try to wrap my head around a number. We're doing hundreds of projects a year. I personally am touching probably 2 to 3 projects a week all across the country. I'm mainly focused on what we would call, for Kara and I's group, emerging type of carriers, which would, Kaysville City would fit that bill. And with Tom and his team of our sales force, we are out trying to touch customers that are looking at doing fiber. We're trying to educate them. We're trying to give them advice on the best network they could possibly build for the money that they want to spend and to fulfill their needs. So, I mean, it's thousands of fiber to the home projects that we've done just here in the United States. I will say that Corning was a partner to the, I'll say the largest, the 3 largest telephone companies in the country, from New York City to Dallas to Seattle, Washington, and have done the design work, have done the bill of material generation, has done installation on their behalf. And so I think we have a great wealth of experience in doing fiber to the home builds, not only here locally in the United States and in Utah, but really all around the world. So we can bring that to bear for your network.
And then obviously the Corning fiber is going to be in the proposal, but is there any other proprietary products and or biases towards certain vendors for the rest of the equipment?
So between David at Connext and Corning, we've decided that it would be Corning fiber, right, glass products, and then for all of the active types of devices, for the huts and anything that's non-glass, David and his team have really studied what are the best things to hang on to the glass. So it would be a tip-to-tip glass Corning solution powered by the best electronics and active components that David would want to power the network.
So David, can you speak a little bit? Does that mean that you're going to look at what's the best available next year as we're doing this, or you have a bias to today of a certain vendor that you use?
We're really kind of pushing towards flexibility and open. There's a lot going on with the open networking community right now with ONOS and ONAP and some of these large groups that are actually trying to do white box solutions. So one of the things we wanted to avoid was being locked in to a specific vendor. We wanted to be able to use the type of hardware that you would be able to load different operating systems onto to provide absolute choice and capacity for moving forward and going forward with the network.
And then Greg, one more question for you. What kind of workmanship warranty does Corning provide on the network?
Kara, this is probably, you will know this. So I've got about 6 years at Corning, and Kara's got, a few more years than I do. I won't embarrass her that way, but I mean, I think we are definitely in the multiple years of warranty. Kara, what's our kind of standard boilerplate warranty period?
Yeah, usually if it's our products, our services, it's not unheard of that we would sign up to like a 10-year extended warranty for workmanship and product, any defects of any kind. We don't offer that as our standard. Our standard is 1 year, right? When we don't know who's going to put it in and that sort of thing. I don't believe warranty was in the RFP. I don't remember.
I'm just asking what you're proposing. What would you propose to be part of your project as workmanship?
I mean, I think we can offer a 10-year.
Yeah, at the cost that's been proposed.
Yes.
Okay.
Councilmember Blackham.
So, listen to Kara, made me thinking. So under your current cost proposals, is everything underground in a conduit?
Yes.
Including from the street to the house?
Yes.
Okay. So if there was a possibility that we had to upsize a wire, or something in an area, the conduit should be there and it should just be pulling new wire. Is that what I'm getting out of that?
So for the, what I'll call kind of the distribution network down the streets, the intention would be to have a conduit that's large enough to accept either a microduct to be pulled in later or a second cable pull. So there'd be, available space for that. If you would think that there would ever be a need, although I doubt there would be, for the drop area from the, terminal on the curb to your home, to also have that upgradability. Right now we have a much smaller duct sort of in the plan for that. And so we would need to discuss that, but there certainly is in kind of the distribution, the streets ductwork space.
In the backbone
Yes.
portion. Okay.
We actually, in our proposal, we actually put a 3/4 inch conduit going up to every home. And from my experience from a drop position, that is plenty of space to change out a cable, no problem.
Right, I'm more interested in the backbone. Mostly. Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions? Okay. Well, thank you all for your presentation. We appreciate it. And we'll get back to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the
Thank you, Mayor.
opportunity.
Thank you so much.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Michelle, did you want me to put that image up?
Yeah, that'd be great. One final thing that I actually meant to say in the very beginning about timeline. It's interesting. We had this planned for months to have them come present at this time, months before we knew what would be happening in the world, obviously, and obviously before we knew the particular events happening in our city. So one of the best things that we have done is we have laid out the entire year of 2020, so everyone knows exactly what to expect, what's happening with this project. No surprises, and you can participate as much or as little as you want. And so you can see this is what we're in right now, as we've had the proposals, we've updated them, we've published them, and then the next phase is putting together the actual plan and publishing it to residents. And that's what you can be looking forward to after this contract is awarded. And if you have any other questions on the timeline, what will be happening next, you can visit the newkaysvillefiber.com website.
All right, thank you.
And then, sorry, one last thing just on process. I know we alluded to it a little bit, but part of the scoring and how you select these projects is to make sure you're not looking at just one side or the other. You're looking at the actual proposal, and you're also looking at the financial part. And we've intentionally made sure that you can look at one and the other and then make the best decision based on both pieces of information. And I know they kind of referenced some figures and percentages and take rates, and we'll talk next week. Those are really to make sure everything is equal in comparing, but that does not mean that's what the project itself will require. So we'll talk about it next week, or next meeting, sorry. Next meeting, I believe it's June 4th.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving on, we're going to declarations of conflicts of interest. I have a conflict of interest with 5A, and I will be sitting out of that discussion. Anybody else? Okay. All right, let's go on to our consent items.
I'll make a motion that we approve consent items A, B, and C.
I'll second that.
Thank you. It's
I'll
been
second
moved.
that, and also say that those soccer jerseys look pretty darn good.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilmember Blackham, seconded by Councilmember Lortz, and commented upon by Councilmember Adams. So any other comments that want to be made at this time? Okay, all right, let's go to a vote. Councilmember Blackman,
Aye.
Councilmember Barber,
Aye.
Councilmember Lortz,
Aye.
Councilmember Tran,
Aye.
Councilmember Adams.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Okay, we'll go to item 5A, and I am turning the chair over to Councilmember Barber.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 5A is a discussion and possible action on a proclamation regarding renouncing support of the May 30th, 2020 event at Barnes Park. And unless staff has any other introduction, I will just go ahead and read the proclamation.
No, go ahead, Michelle. I was gonna present this if you had any questions or concerns, but I don't need to say anything if you want to just read it.
Okay, thank you, Nick. All right, a proclamation disavowing support for the Utah Business Revival Concert. We, the Kaysville City Council, hereby make the following proclamation. Kaysville City has learned that a group of people known as the Utah Business Revival are planning to hold an outdoor concert and accompanying festivities at Barnes Park on or about May 30th, 2020. Recent events reported by respected media partners have caused confusion about the city's official position regarding this concert. We seek to clarify our position through this proclamation. As an initial matter, we recognize and emphasize with local business. We appreciate that the COVID-19 pandemic has placed extraordinary strain on the economy. The long-term ramifications of this pandemic will have on our community's business is a concern for the City Council. We applaud businesses, community partners, and others who have been and are continuing to elevate and implement measures designed to safely and responsibly stimulate the economy. We also respect efforts by Governor Herbert to advocate for the directives that have attempted to balance personal freedom and public health concerns. The aim of the Davis County Health Department's orders to limit the spread of COVID-19 are to be commended. We believe that the efforts of the state and county officials have been motivated by noble intentions. We recognize that balancing public health, personal freedom, and economic recovery during a pandemic is a nearly impossible task. We issue a proclamation to simply and clearly articulate the city's official position on the Utah Business Revival event and resolve any confusion that may exist. Put simply, number one, the Kaysville City Council does not support or endorse the Utah Business Revival event proposed to be held on May 30th, 2020 at Barnes Park. Number two, the Kaysville City Council does not support any use of city resources or influence to promote or imply affiliation with Mayor Witt's congressional campaign or any other political campaign. Further, we do not support or endorse campaign strategies that imply city promotion or affiliation with specific candidates. Adopted and proclaimed by the City Council of Kaysville, Utah, this 21st day of May, 2020. And now I would entertain a motion at this time.
Councilman Barber, do we need to have public comment allowed first?
Anne Marie? I believe we do.
Yes, you do.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Lortz. Anne Marie, will you be calling on who is signed up for these?
I can, yeah.
Thank you.
The first one will be Sam Porter.
So Sam Porter and Mindy Smith are the first two ones. I'm not seeing them in the list. I believe the first one, number 3, Eric Jensen.
I think it's Eric Jessen, and I see that he's still muted.
Is Eric been
Jordan, are we,
I am not seeing Eric in the list either now.
I see Eric Jessen,
Jessen, yeah.
Jessn, and he has his hand raised. So I'm
Oh,
assuming
that's
that's
probably why I was missing.
who we're
There we
looking
go.
for. Eric, we found you.
Good to go.
Thank you.
Now appear to be unmuted.
Thank you.
I'd just like to say, for sure, this is a mess. I would tell you that I am strongly in support of the idea of what the Utah Business Revival is trying to do. I think so much of what we're doing is being driven by fear. I have the CDC's website up right now, and it says person-to-person spread, that it may be spread by people who are not showing symptoms. I've also got up a comment by the New Jersey Governor, Phil Murphy, who says that most importantly, we will continue to be guided by the principle that public health creates economic health. And I would tell you that I think he's got it absolutely backwards. Public health is created by economic activity. That's what got us clean water. That's what got us sanitation. That's what causes us to feed the world with our excess abundance due to production. And shutting down production across the board is probably going to hurt us really bad, really soon. So I'm supportive of their idea big time. I'm not in support of how this went down in our city. I think this went down very poorly, could have been planned much better, could have had tremendous potential. But unfortunately, the first I heard of it was the media blitz last week on the local radio, and none of that's good. None of that makes us look good. Scares the crap out of everybody, and it's really bad. So I think it's a terrible tragedy that this has gone the way it is. I don't think it's necessary to do a proclamation against this group. I think their motives are also true and noble. And so I'm all about a proclamation against how this went down. But as far as a proclamation against what I think is very important, which is rejuvenating our economic activity so we don't starve to death, I don't know if that's where we want to go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. All right, Anne Marie, do we have our next public comment?
The next one I see on the list that is in attendance is Brandon Barnett. Here we go.
Good evening again, Council. I appreciate you letting me take a second chance to speak. I wasn't quite sure what the format was going to be with the additional time being added at the beginning. So I spoke about my petition earlier, and I won't bore you with that, but I want to cover just a couple of things. One, contrary to the last speaker, I do question the motives of the Utah Business Revival, and I would support a resolution against them, not because I don't believe in what they believe in. I do believe that we need to open the economy, and I do believe that we need to get people to work and that people need to support their families. But in being someone that was vocal very early on in this process, I started to notice things on both sides getting very ugly. I noticed posts from Utah Business Revival basically denouncing, basically going actually against everything that Mayor Witt was saying. While I believe that Mayor Witt acted irresponsibly, and I believe that she was inappropriate in the things that she was doing, I do believe she thought the group intended to follow some rules. But I do believe that they used her. And I reached out to Eric Matzos with the idea that maybe if we could get both sides to communicate with each other, they would, we could find some common ground and find some kind of solution. And I reached out to him, basically letting him know, because we'd been called, you know, all kinds of derogatory things here in Kaysville. We'd been called a bunch of liberal snowflakes, you name it, inappropriate things. And I reached out to him to let him know that I'm a conservative. I've been a conservative my whole entire life, and I've fought for a lot of the things that he's now fighting for. And in my conversation with him, I let him know that, like, look, let's find some common ground. I think we have a lot more in common, you and I, than we have not in common. And when it all came down to it, the biggest thing he could say to me was that if I knew how much money he had sunk into this, I would have a different opinion. And to me, that is disgusting. For him to openly talk about how this is all about First Amendment rights, but then privately talk about this is not important. The First Amendment rights aren't important. What really is important is I've sunk a lot of money into this, and now you guys are pissing me off because I stand to lose that money. That's disgraceful. And so while I don't approve of what Mayor Witt did, I will say that I think she was used, and that's unfortunate. But you know, I want to be fair to her as well. But I will say that I do support your resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Brandon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next one is Camille Price.
I spoke earlier in the meeting, and while I'll just summarize it up and not take a lot of time, but I feel like I do not support having large public events in Kaysville. I endorse the motion on the table right now, but I also think that it has divided us and it has pulled attention away from other important things that the city needs to spend time and attention on, like managing some of our public highway safety so that our children can be safe from some of the accidents that are happening. And we do need to put our citizens first and think about those kinds of important things, because only the city can manage traffic engineering and road safety here in Kaysville. And I implore that we take a look, a very close look, go back through the police records and look at the Crestwood Road intersection there and do our best to make it so that those cars don't keep coming in and plowing into homes and places where children are playing, because it's happened over and over and over. And, you know, happy to meet with someone and follow up with documentation on those numbers and intensity of incidents. But we need to be cognizant of that. And that's where I think we need to spend our time and energy, rather than on talking to people that want to take advantage of our city and for their own purposes. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Camille.
Thank
Up
you.
next is David Bowman.
Thank you, Council. I've prepared a statement to go along with this that I'll read. I'm in support of the resolution. As you are aware, the Kaysville City Council Code states that members themselves have the primary responsibility to ensure that ethical standards are understood and met, and that the public can continue to have full confidence in the integrity of the government. The City Council, by majority may also impose sanctions on members who conduct themselves in a way that does not comply with the city's ethical standards. The City Council, as the governing body, are charged with this responsibility to intervene when actions of members appear to be in violation of the code of conduct and are witnessed or brought to your attention. With the citations and evidence that have been provided in this meeting, as well as conversations in the media from the citizens you serve, it is essential that the council make it very clear that the Kaysville City does not want to have even the appearance of impropriety. The appearance of these noted actions by Mayor Katie Witt leaves Kaysville residents to question if she has and would conduct herself honorably when making decisions as the mayor. It is essential that our community is able to trust our mayor, and having her violate the code of conduct in such egregious and visible ways while continuing to represent the city is responsible. I request that you take immediate action that is fair and equal treatment to our claims, and consider the fact that if the mayor was truly acting as a proper role, she would not have had a need to withdraw herself from this discussion due to a conflict of interest, because she would have been acting appropriately if she had been doing her job in an honest format.
Thank you, David.
Thank you, David.
I see our next
public comment is Keith Larson.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I urge the passage of this proclamation. I understand that the concert is moved to Tooele and is running afoul of the same state and county regulations there that should have been applied here. This vanity protest should have never been approved. There is a movie in the 1950s entitled Rebel Without a Cause. The title applies here. The state of Utah has been blessed with fewer cases and has dealt with the pandemic in a very measured way. We never have had a statewide shelter-in-place order. Here in Kaysville, I could buy groceries, restaurant food, car services, building supplies, and even arts and crafts materials. I could not get a haircut, but even that has changed. The state of Utah is moving aggressively to reopen all businesses. So what was the point of the protest? The timing of this protest seemed rushed. It seemed that it just had to be done before any justification for the protest, and therefore any political value disappeared altogether. Even the mayor is quoted in the Deseret News as saying that Utah's yellow risk could be changed to green before the concert. This protest was hollow and unneeded. Now, the mayor has every right, like every other citizen, to engage in protest, but she does not have the right to use her good offices as mayor and the resources of the city to engage in her private protests. She does not have the right to circumvent the rules and regulations of her own city. That is elitism. I am bone weary of American values like patriotism, freedom, and the Constitution being used to divide people rather than unify them. My parents lived through the Great Depression and World War II. The values of freedom and patriotism meant to them uniting this country to meet the challenges of their times. They understood that none of our values work without responsibility. This pandemic has been and continues to be a challenge for our times. Whining about individual rights and using words like patriot as a we-they context is not helpful and makes us weaker as a people.
30 seconds.
Okay, I just, again, urge the passage of this proclamation to document the stance of the city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Keith.
Thank you.
I see that our next speaker is Nephi Harvey.
I'm going to defer. Thank you very much. I'm going to defer to Dave Adams.
Hey, Mayor and Council, thank you for having me tonight. I would just like to let some former words of the mayor do the talking on this grotesque issue.
All right, go ahead. Okay, all right. The way I see it, we have two options. You can either choose to resign now under your own volition and just use your usual, I want to spend more time with my family, whatever you need to do. I've got things that I need to take care of. You can go ahead and do that. Or on Thursday, there will be a resolution on the agenda that calls for your censure, not censor, censure. Also, you will be reprimanded. Also, we will request that you resign. Also, we're also considering levying fines. These are the things that will be in the resolution on Thursday, and I have unanimous support by the city council, and it will pass. So we will reprimand you, we will formally censure you, we will request that you resign, and we will possibly fine you as well. So those are the things that are within our power as the city council to impose, to enforce our code of conduct, and we will use all of them. So somebody gets accusations made against them
and this is how you react.
Yes, it is. Because what we are trying to
You're
do
making
here,
accusations against me that I can be
you
bought.
not want my answer. You be quiet. Now listen, what we're trying to do is we need to build the trust of our community. And if we have somebody who's going around calling people demanding $250,000 by midnight, that does not engender trust in our community. You have done damage to our city council, and we will not stand for it. You will resign.
And you think this is true? Of what evidence, Mrs. Mayor?
I don't care.
30
It
seconds.
does not matter. What matters is that the insinuation, and I think that the fact that it's been being investigated and all the facts that have come out in the newspaper are enough to damage this city. Your actions have damaged this city, and we will not stand for it. The entire council is united, and we will not stand for it. You will resign now, or you will resign eventually.
Time's
We
up.
are not going to put up with any of this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Randy Von Bosti is our last comment for this item.
Mute now. All right, I think y'all can hear me. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, I'm a little shaken by that last comment that was allowed to be put into the public record. I do not feel like that was appropriate, but it will be a segue into what I am going to read. Thank you, City Council members. Today took me in a different direction than I anticipated, and I'm truly thankful for this circumstance. I have spent the last week trying to figure out what rights we as citizens have when unilateral decisions are being made on our behalf. While I respect the republic nature of our government structure, this is one of the first times I've seen an outpouring of unification within a community in opposition to a decision that was being made by a single leader. There are people that I have nary agreed with on anything for many years that I found myself in working with to find resolution. The term strange bedfellows has been used quite a bit today, and I am grateful for the chance to work across ideological lines in standing up for our city. One of the main objectives in being involved in fighting against the proposed concert was to show the unification that does exist among Kaysville residents. To that end, 5 of us who found ourselves working together put out a resolution of citizen censure. While there is no legal precedent for this action and no binding mechanism associated with the document, it was important to us that our grievance be documented and that the community have a chance to add their voices. This resolution was put out to the general public yesterday around 1 p.m. In a single day, we were able to gather 473 names of people who agree that this action on the part of Mayor Witt was in violation of the code of conduct that she agreed to upon taking office. 412 of these individuals are residents of Kaysville. While the concert has been moved to another venue, we would like to formally submit this resolution for the public record and ask that the council still pursue actions of accountability for the fallout that has occurred due to the actions that have been taken. We also ask that Mayor Witt still publicly state that she would be willing to withdraw her authorization. While it would be purely symbolic, it would go a long way to showing the general public, even the national public, that Kaysville is a place worth protecting. Additionally, over the last week, we have organized an online group dedicated to uniting Kaysville citizens as we oppose this concert. Many, many members have given countless hours and energy to making phone calls, writing letters, brainstorming ideas, and researching options. I think Kimberly Morrison called every elected official in a 100-mile radius who would take her call, and I am in awe of her tenacity. But all of our efforts would be nothing without the members of the City Council standing in opposition to the concert. Today, we wanted to give our appreciation to our council with a citizen resolution of appreciation that I will now read. Resolution of recognition and appreciation. Whereas Kaysville City has been fortunate to have a dedicated City Council committed to the city brand of being Utah's hometown that is steeped in traditional family values, and whereas several members of the City Council are now emblazoned in public criticism for working to represent these values for the citizens of Kaysville, and whereas we as members of the Kaysville community wish to extend our utmost appreciation for the work that these council members have done in being responsive to the voice of the citizenry in regarding the proposed country concert, and whereas the citizens wish to extend our sincere and public approval of the actions that have been taken, now therefore be it resolved that the citizens of Kaysville, Utah appreciate the service of those Kaysville City Council members, Michelle Barber, Dawn Swan Adams, Tammy Tran, Andre Lortz,
30
Michael
seconds.
Blackman, who have given time, energy, and public support to these matters on this 21st day of the month of May in the year of 2020. This was put out to our online group this afternoon, and we had 76 members add their names to the resolution. I am certain there would be many, many more if we made it more widely available and had more time. Thank you for giving up your lives to phone calls, emails, attending legal meetings, and so much more to help us figure out how to magnify the Kaysville brand. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy.
Thank you, Randy.
Thank you. Thank you,
That was the last of our public comment for this specific item 5A that we have on the table, this proclamation. So we are open for a motion right now.
So question.
Yeah.
We're making a motion to accept or not accept, right?
The motion can be whatever the motion creator would like.
Okay.
Maybe adopt, I don't know, maybe I could recommend,
Yeah.
I don't know. It seems like maybe Nick could tell us if the wording makes a difference.
Yeah, I think the wording should be,
adoption of the
I
Go ahead,
apologize, Michelle.
That's
I
okay.
apologize. Adopt
okay.
or approve would be, or not adopt or not approve is
Okay.
kind of where you should go.
Okay. I'll make a motion that we adopt a proclamation renouncing support of the May 30th, 2020 event at Barnes Park.
I'll second it.
All right, the motion has been made by Councilmember Tran and seconded by Councilmember Blackham. And now it's open for comments from the council. Councilmember Blackham, please.
You know, I want to say that I have really learned a lot from this experience. I've learned that what I picture on a telephone call is not really what's happening. And I've been in the fire service for 34 years, over 35 years. And believe me, my intent has always been to keep people from harm's way. And I don't prove to be a scientist. I'm not smart like they are, but their recommendation is that we don't do this. And that comes from the health department, which is part of Kaysville City. Our ordinance adopts the Davis County Health Department as our health department. And, you know, and I have to say that I really appreciate my council members that I work with, who also, I think, got a picture painted different than what was really happening, and were able to change their minds or whatever and make the right decisions. And I really appreciate it. And I've learned a lot. You know, you make mistakes. You know, I think I kind of didn't understand exactly what was going on at first, but I appreciate John calling me and kind of bringing me to light of what was going on. And you know, and once I understood what was going on, I certainly have spent all my career as a fireman making sure people are safe, and I remove the hazards and the harm that are there for them. I certainly would not put the Kaysville City citizens in something that could possibly hurt or harm them. This is a real deal. This pandemic is real. There was 160 more cases yesterday, 2 more deaths. This is a real deal. And that's really all I've got to say. I'll let my other council members speak.
Thanks, Councilmember Blackham. Councilmember Lortz.
So, I mean, I'll add a few more comments. Certainly, this has been a very challenging week, although it was very ironic that on the front page of the Wall Street Journal today was an article about scientists saying that the biggest cause of spread for the COVID disease is mass gatherings of 500 or more, and that is the super spreader that has moved the pandemic more than any other event in the society. So I think that was very appropriate to be able to read that today. Is obviously still they're learning about how this pandemic is spreading out and how it's moving around. But I also read this week something that was very interesting. It was by a doctor who had worked with the Ebola cases in Africa. And there was a lot of fear around that because Ebola is much more deadly than this COVID-19 has proven to be. But obviously the COVID-19 has spread a lot farther than Ebola ever did. But these are his words. If we are not prepared to fight fear and ignorance as actively and as thoughtfully as we fight any other virus, it is possible that fear can do terrible harm to vulnerable people, even in places that never see a single case of infection during an outbreak. And a fear epidemic can have far worse consequences when complicated by issues of race, privilege, and language. And maybe we can put in there politics. But I think, you know, the thing that for me was the most disappointing in this whole event, I think every one of the city council members was trying to find a way that says, we'd love to see a concert or an event happen. Let's try to make sure we plan it properly. My first questions were, what is their safety plan? What is their health plan? What's their sanitation plan? And I said, I look forward to seeing how they proposed to carry off this event. None of those plans were ever brought forward. Nothing was ever discussed other than the simple anecdotes of, we'll encourage social distancing and we'll let people wear masks if they want to. And so for me, it was very frustrating because I would like to have seen this happen. I think it could have been a great thing for Kaysville, but I don't think that trying to push it through as a protest and ignore all other rules, regulations, and process or procedures was appropriate. And so it was very frustrating to go through that. And I apologize to the citizens that Kaysville has been pulled through this, but know that as a council, I think we were very united in trying to do the right thing, both in public and in private, in trying to find a way to do what's right for Kaysville. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Schwartz. Councilmember Tran, you're unmuted. Did you want to speak?
Oh,
I think Councilmember Adams. Did you want to go?
Oh, go ahead. I'll
Okay.
let Councilmember Adams go first.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I appreciate my fellow council members. This has been a trying week. It's been lots of sleepless nights, and I had much more prepared to speak about prior to this morning, where the venue was changed. I am appreciative that that has happened. I think what I would speak to most is that I'm discouraged for Councilmember Barber. You know, I can take the heat, but I've really felt in my heart for her and what she's gone through, just not only in the last few days, but this morning, having her name pulled through the mud really hurts me. And because I know how hard she works for the city, and I know how many hours she spends working for the people of the city. And you know, I hope that there's apologies coming down the line, and would hope that our mayor would see fit to apologize for the way that she has treated not only our citizens, but the city in general, and specifically the city council. I think that one of my biggest frustrations through all of this is that I don't feel like she's represented us as a city and as the people. And so that would be my hope. And I would hope that this proclamation speaks to everyone, that we were clear on this, and also that everyone will know that this proclamation came forth not as a knee-jerk reaction to feeling like we'd made some mistake. This was always our intent. Anyhow, that's all I have to say.
Thanks, Councilmember Adams. That means a lot. Thank you. Councilmember Tran, did you have anything to say?
Did you want to go ahead and go first?
Yes, I'm happy to.
Okay.
Me personally, I would say, even though I know the mayor's not able to speak right now, I hope she's listening, when we say that this was hurtful. This was something our city did not need. And I fear that the repercussions are far beyond next Friday and far beyond this meeting. But I can also commit that those of us on this call are also committed to moving forward and showing the city that we do have your best interest at heart. We're here for that. We don't support the way this happened or the way it was communicated or a whole lot of other things. But what we do support is taking care of our city, and particularly our city staff, who work really tirelessly and have been put in really horrible positions this past week. And that was hard to watch. That was really hard to watch. I think that there was an abuse of power utilized for this concert, for this event. And obviously, we've learned to appreciate the processes we have in place, and we are more committed to following those than ever. We have these meetings and these processes and these records for a reason. That's how it was told to us at the very beginning. We'd be voting tonight, actually. And had that happened and had this gone through the right process and the community was involved, like Councilmember Lort said, maybe we would have said, nope, pass, or maybe we would have said, let's work together and make this something that will work for the city. And in the future, that's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to follow. And I absolutely commit. We've had the best ideas for economic support coming out of this past week than ever before. So thank you, citizens, for that. And I commit we're going to have some great stuff. I have a lot of pride in Kaysville. I always have. And we're going to come out of this and show that we are even better. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Okay. Fawn Morgan posted something that I thought was really appropriate on Facebook. I don't know if she's officially the historian for the city or not, but she sure does provide a lot of great historical support and information. So I'm just going to read it really fast because I thought it was fantastic. She said, it's good every now and then to take a step back and imagine those who aren't previously where you stand now. Your accomplishments bring glory not to your descendants, but to your ancestors, in recognition of the fact that it was their sacrifices that put you in a position to do what you do. For that matter, your accomplishments, your behaviors, reflect on those who came before you in the community you choose to call home. Hopefully, we are civilly behaved as we interact with others in Kaysville and Fruit Heights and surrounding communities. Let's do it in honor of the sacrifices the early settlers made to create a great place for you to live. I think that one of the things that we love about Kaysville is, well, one of the things that I love about Kaysville is the majority of the emails that we receive from the community started out with, I've been a Kaysville resident for X amount of years. That's our claim to fame here in Kaysville. We love belonging to the community. We love belonging to each other, and we love supporting one another. And, you know, I think over the last week, we've seen a lot of information out there. And I really hope that we can come together as a community, as a city council, and no doubt mistakes have been made. I think that Mayor Witt got excited about a plan, got ahead of herself. And like Michelle mentioned and others have mentioned, we do have a process in place. We have a system in place, and we just need to make sure that we adhere to that. Discussions weren't allowed to happen as a group. We haven't had the opportunity to meet as a city council until now. We can have one-on-one discussions, but until we can collectively come before you and have an open discussion and really understand what's going on, It's, you know, we can't commit to anything until we have this opportunity to be able to hear from one another and to find out more information. And so I've learned a lot as a new council member. I think we all have. We've learned a lot about the process, and we've also learned a lot about our community. One thing that has been mentioned is that this has united us, and I hope that we're not united against a common enemy, which would be Mayor Witt. I hope that we're united against the common enemy, which has been the coronavirus. It's put us all in really uncomfortable positions. It's made us all live differently and make decisions that we've never really prepared ourselves to make as we move forward. So I just really hope that we can take what we've learned and commit to continue to work together as a community and really do what's best for Kaysville. We have a great community. We support our local businesses. We are so enthusiastic over the opportunity to provide our local businesses and our community with an opportunity to celebrate. And so that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Chan, so much. I would just add a huge thank you to the entire council, specifically speaking to this item 5A. It is really hard to get things put together on a tight timeline to get published in an agenda, making sure there's notice and we're following all of those procedures like we usually do. And there were some long hours put in to get this out in time and before you, and as something that we could all stand behind as we were fielding, as you saw, questions coming at us. And I never would have thought we'd be able to do what we did so quickly and following, like I said, the procedures that we have. I am more thankful for them than I ever have been. And so I commend the council for being able to do that. Had we not had this and worked so quickly and tirelessly, this would have been a very unstructured discussion. And yet now we have something that we can vote on, we can put in the record, and hopefully put it in the history books and move on from this particular 5A, I should say. So we've already have a motion on the table to approve it, to adopt, I should say, to adopt the resolution. It's been seconded, and now we'll call for a vote. And I will start with Councilmember Lortz.
Aye.
Councilmember Blackham.
Aye.
Councilmember Adams.
Aye.
Councilmember Chan.
Aye.
And I will also vote aye. Thank you all for that. I believe we'll move on to our next item, and Mayor Witt will lead us out.
Before we move on, I want to make a statement. It was my mistake that I did not loop in the council sooner. It was my mistake that I did not get information ahead of time and include the council members. It was also a mistake to wait for information from the organizers. It was my intent when I originally spoke to you that this event was going to meet the regulations, because they wanted to have this be something that could be a model that could be implemented across the state. That fell apart with the exit of a member of their team. I thought that, but my intent was always to look towards defending the Constitution. I know you guys disagree with me on this, but I feel that we absolutely do need to look after the rights that are afforded us, especially at this time. And that was always my intent. But I regret that I did not lean on you as my council members. And there's a reason why we have a council, to gather the wisdom from multiple people. And I apologize to you for that. And I am grateful for this community, because I think we've seen over the past week that our constitutional rights are alive and well. We have had so many people speaking and coming together. And just because we disagree about how to reopen our country and restore our freedoms doesn't mean that this is political. And I want to emphasize that I did this for the reasons that I've stated. So I just appreciate the opportunity to serve. And I think that I did not misspend funds. I did not take money. I did not do anything illegal. But I did hurt your feelings, and I apologize for that. All right, we're going to go on to
Mayor. I just want to thank you for that, and tell you I accept your apology.
Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to discussion of possible action on a resolution placing a moratorium on special event permits until such time as the governor or county health department have approved mass gatherings. Nick?
Thank you, Mayor Witt, and members of the City Council. This is a pretty straightforward resolution. What this would do is it would place a moratorium on special events. One of the reasons why staff feels like this is something the council may want to consider doing is there is a gap between a mass gathering. County typically defines at 1,000 participants at an event. Obviously, that's a very large event, and you can be issued a special event permit in the city for a much smaller gathering. This would place a moratorium on the city's issuance of special events permits until the governor issued a green level health risk directive. The county had rescinded all of its orders, or so that the council didn't have to revisit this or could reevaluate it kind of on an ongoing basis. It would expire on September 30th. That's kind of the summary of it, and I'll turn it back to you.
Okay. All right. Now we have comments on this. Just a sec. Do we have any comments on this, Anne-Marie? Eric Jessen, please.
Am I successfully unmuted?
Yes.
I would encourage you not to blanket do this. I did some research on the city website trying to figure out what the process was. And I'm not sure I was able to figure out by looking at what's on the website as to who the approval authority is for all this kind of stuff. As an example, on the special events application, it talks about what a special event is, and then it talks about exemptions. One of the 5 exemptions is political or public issue events, which led me to believe that you didn't need to get a special event application to do something that is a public issue or political event. But then the next ones say that, hey, if you're going to amplify sound or whatever, all of those events do it. Anyway, it looks like a process that needs to be refined. And it strikes me that if there was a more clear process, and or if the process as you currently understand it to be had occurred, there could be something that comes up that you'd very much want to do, and doing a blanket moratorium that you won't consider anything doesn't sound like a great idea to me. If you have a process in place, you can turn things down. That's all I'd say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Debbie
Thank you.
Jordan, please.
Yes,
Go ahead, Debbie.
I believe it's important to have these processes in place. For instance, the debacle that we've been in recently, the county health order says that there should be a timeline established with this, that it should be submitted 15 days prior to the very first advertisement of the gathering, and that it should be at least 30 days before the actual event. Had the event have discussed this evening been done in that timely manner, we would have had time for the council possibly to meet on this issue before tonight, and it would have never maybe gotten this out of hand until now. And I think it's important to recall why these permits are there. They are there because they are there to protect the public, to have the proper medical services, the fire department, the ambulances and things on hand. If there's a situation that arises, it's proper sanitation, it's food handling, it's many other things outside of even the pandemic that we've talked about. You know, I think when we talk about gatherings, we fail to realize sometimes that right now there's a lot of things we'd like to be gathering and doing, and for obvious reasons we're not doing them right now. So I think that we need to be reasonable, but I don't think it's a good thing to just go away from processes that are there for our protection, pandemic or no pandemic. I think we need to be reasonable, and we need to stay and do the proper course of action with these things. I also would just like to add, I appreciate the council members for your service. I'm sure that it has been a very difficult time. I hope Mayor Witt was honest in what she said tonight. I'm still struggling a great deal with whether I believe that she's been truthful or not, and I'll work on that. But, you know, I feel like you put yourself, Mayor Witt, in a position to say that you don't need to honor the law in the same ways that we do, that the parks now can be open when I can't even reserve a Bowery for a family gathering, for instance, a small family gathering where, you know, all of a sudden we're going to have this major event. We can't celebrate graduations or funerals or other things that are really important to us. But again, I think this permit issue is something that's important because it protects everyone that would be part of those gatherings. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie.
David Bowman.
Thank you, Council. I think as a commentary, it's sad that we need to have a resolution of this nature because a member of our city council decided it was appropriate to act under their authority instead of having a resolution that states normal process would be followed so that our elected officials could review it as a group. I support the resolution because we have seen that we can't rely on certain members of the council to not repeat this offense. Furthermore, this goes towards supporting the local health department and governor, who was repeatedly told by our mayor, both directly and in multiple news interviews, that she didn't care if they agreed or not. My feelings were hurt, but I also was hurt by the intentional act to violate the good name of Kaysville. I urge you to pass this motion as part of supporting our other elected leaders and showing that Kaysville is not represented by the actions of our rogue mayor. You should not stop at this action. You should also censure her for her behavior, just as she has insisted in the past in the way she has treated former members of the council and dictated on the phone, as we just heard earlier, to people telling them that she was in charge. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Eric Moutsos, please. Okay. Okay, I don't think he is here. So we'll go on. All right, questions from council. Councilmember Adams, please.
Yeah, maybe Nick, you could clarify for us I think one of the concerns that I received an email in response to this was having to do with how long the moratorium is placed, if we would remove it immediately after things were allowed. I think to speak to also the gentleman that spoke, Mr. Jessen, having to do with the blanket statement. I guess how enforceable, when can we reverse this if things all magically become amazing?
Sure. So if the governor issued green, a level green, that would terminate the resolution. You could also take action. This resolution is good until September 30th, but you could take action at any point as a council and rescind this resolution. And then also if the county health department rescinded all of its orders and directives relating to COVID-19, that would also rescind this. And then if I could just speak to one other issue, we don't regulate political gatherings because they are fraught with First Amendment issues, but we do administratively regulate special events permits. So what we're trying to accomplish here is, if the council doesn't want to have special events, large gatherings, this is the mechanism to prohibit those. Otherwise, this is an administrative decision that the city has very little discretion on whether it approves it or disapproves it. In fact, if the application comes in and it's timely and they can meet the conditions of the application, the city is almost bound to approve it. And the same would be true, I believe, for amplified noise. You could put reasonable restrictions on it, but you would be almost forced as a council. Even though it comes before you, it's not a legislative decision.
Thank you. Councilmember Lortz.
Nick, if you could also clarify, so is a special event similar to renting the Bowery for a small gathering of 20 or 40 family members?
Candidly, I'm not sure how small the group is. I would imagine if 20 people and that meets, yellow conditions, I would imagine that doesn't qualify for a special events permit, but Cole would speak better on that, and he's on.
Yeah, Councilmember Lords, if I could answer that. So the special event specifically deals with anything that is out of the ordinary of the normal functions of our parks recreation system. So renting of a pavilion does not require a special event. It's just a pavilion reservation. So they're two separate. So the special event specifically deals with things that are out of the normal operations of our parks and their typical use.
If I could follow up with that, Cole, if you could also then clarify, given that we've moved to yellow, which allows for up to a group of 50 to meet, would we allow people in Kaysville to rent Boweries as long as they meet those restrictions and the social guidelines?
Yes, and we opened those pavilion reservations up on Monday, May 18th.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Blackman.
Just a question for Nick. So by approving this resolution, it takes both, right? It takes the governor going to green and the health department lifting their restrictions. Is that correct?
That's correct. I believe those things would happen almost simultaneously.
I would think they would too, but I want to make sure, because I'm reading it and it says both, and I totally agree with both because I want the science there, and that's why I really rely on the health department. Because like I said, they are our health department, the Davis County Health Department. It's in our ordinance that says we are the Davis County Health Department. So that's why I had that question. Thank you.
Yeah, I will say the resolution is a little ambiguous on that. If you wanted to pass that, you could, if that's your desire, I would suggest you pass a motion that says that both of those, the governor and the county health department, have to both take those actions. Because I think you could that was the intent that I certainly wrote it with, but I think that it could be open to that other interpretation.
I mean, I like the way, I think the way it's written, that's how I read it. But if you think we need to strengthen it, I'm all for it. But I think it said that the state of Utah declares a green level health risk, comma, the Davis County Health Department has rescinded orders related to COVID-19. So I think it's there. I just want to make sure that we're aware and everybody's clear that it's both, not just one, both. Thank you.
All right. Any other comments? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept the resolution, placing a moratorium on the issuance of special event permits.
I'll second the motion.
It's been moved by Councilmember Blackham, seconded by Councilmember Adams. Any comments? Councilmember Adams.
Yeah, the only comment I want to make is that I feel like this is more to protect staff and give them direction. I think that for them, they play a very delicate balancing act of remaining neutral when people want to do things, and that this gives them the opportunity to have direction, and that's why I feel like we should vote for it to approve it.
Okay. Any other comments? Councilmember Barber.
My comment was going to be similar. On principle, I really don't like creating ordinances in response to specific individual events. It just isn't really a great process. And so I was really hesitant to do this because, like we've said ad nauseum tonight, we have processes for a reason, and legislating based on specific one-time events is really not great process. But in talking to staff and hearing what they've been put through this past week with additional events being proposed, I think maybe just to add more to this complex situation, if this helps them in how they can administer those and makes it more clear for everyone, it's a short-term thing. It's not like we are implementing a policy that's going to have long-term lasting consequences. The longest it will last is through September 30th. And we are still going to be as open as possible for reasonable things to be done in our city. I love our city parks. And as I've been driving by the past few weeks and seeing people back enjoying them, it's brought me a lot of happiness. They're there to be used. And I think if it can be done safely and appropriately, I think you'll find the city very accommodating, even with this.
Okay, any other comments? Councilmember Lortz.
So I guess the one thing that concerns me with putting a blanket moratorium on the special event permits is just what we talked about. I think we'd all love if we could find a way to do a special event that could be done responsibly and with proper planning. I think it'd be a great thing for our city. And I hate to see us say that we're not going to entertain anything until we see that, because we may have Davis County not go to green or not change its orders because the south end of the county is at a higher risk than the north end of the county or the central part of the county. And then we are stuck with what the state and or the rest of the county is doing, irregardless of what Kaysville is, regardless of what Kaysville is experiencing. And so I think that it's very, difficult, and especially as Councilmember Barber said, to react to a single event, to try to do something like this is also out of the norm.
Councilmember Tran.
I have a question, Nick. So is there a way to add some flexibility to this? Because I understand the purpose of it. The purpose is we're learning from what we've just experienced, and normally we wouldn't want to just come up and sort of knee-jerk react to things. But like we've all mentioned, this is a very different time in the world. And so we're just trying to make sure that we can protect our staff and protect our community. So is there a way to add some leniency or some flexibility to this should the opportunity arise for the city to host an event like that? Or
Well, certainly you can add flexibility. The problem that you run into is from a legal and a liability standpoint, as far as claims discriminating against certain groups, the easiest way to do that is to just say, we're just not going to have events for a certain amount of time. If you wanted to, one way you could put flexibility in it is alter the September 30th date. You could move that to August. You could move that, to tomorrow, really. And then the other thing to remember is this is a resolution. So this is very malleable, unlike an ordinance or a change in the city code. This is just direction from the council to the staff, because this is a staff level decision that Cole and the city manager would make on special events. And like I said, if they met the qualifications, they would get the permit. And so those are kind of my ideas on it, or my advice would be, if you want to move the date up, that's a very easy way to make it less onerous, and or recognize that if a good idea came in tomorrow, we could put this on the next agenda and repeal it.
Councilmember Lawrence. Can I do a follow-up question, Nick? So the standard process for a special event permit is 30 days before the event. So if we're talking about somebody wanting to come in next week to get a permit, the soonest that they could try to put an event together would be the end of June. Correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay, Councilmember Adams.
Thank you. I guess, though, has that precedent ever been not taken? I mean, have events ever been prior to 30 days and still gone forward? It's my understanding in speaking to staff that's not always been the case, that there's been options where that 30 days has been waived.
That's a requirement that the staff has, or that the application has, and the staff could deny it for that reason. But if it was and I don't want to speak for Cole totally, but that's something that if the city in its review of the application saw that it was, in a typical year, I guess, quote unquote normal year, if it was a special event that the Parks Department felt like would have a minimal impact, they could potentially approve it faster, but they have no requirement to. If you don't meet the administrative guidelines of the application, that in itself, regardless of how good the event is reason to deny it. But if you came in with a really minimal impactful event that was really attractive to the city could approve it in theory, but has no requirement to.
Would it be, oh, sorry, Councilmember Blackmon, I'll let you go, but would it be inappropriate to ask Shane, where he's sort of in the heart of what staff's dealing with, would it be appropriate to ask him what he would prefer to see from us this evening? I mean, I don't know if that's, at least I would like to see what his thoughts are maybe on the matter.
Is that okay, Mayor?
Of course.
I'm Councilmember Adams. I think this is a good resolution. I think Mr. Mills laid out very well what the downfalls of this are, which I think there are minimal downsides to this. To answer maybe your first question, I don't see us waiving the 30 days very often. I think that we have 30 days in there for a reason, and it's important to me that we do follow those guidelines as best we can. But I think this resolution is relatively harmless and may have some upside to it that might be beneficial to us at this time.
Councilmember Blackham.
The reason I like this resolution is because it is clear and concise. And so anybody coming in and asking for that, the staff has a clear and concise order of what the council feels like. Now, obviously, this is a resolution. It can be rescinded. But right now, don't want to be in that gray area. They don't want to be the ones to determine, is this a real event, or can I, does this mean? No, it makes it clear and concise to staff. And once it goes green and the health department, it doesn't have to wait till the 30th. It's open from then. And then we'll revisit it at the September 30th. If it's still yellow and the health department hasn't given their okay. So I just think it helps staff have a black and white requirement that they can work with. That's all.
Okay. All right. Any other comments? Okay. All right. Let's go to a vote. Oh, Councilmember Barber.
Thank you. Cole, if you could just touch on the process for if we had a city-sponsored event, how we would go about that if the city wanted to sponsor, say, a business fair or something that met guidelines currently, things hadn't changed, what would that process look like?
So from a city sponsor meeting, the city is the one organizing it. So if the city is the one organizing it, we would be responsible to meet all of the guidelines that the county health department has in place right now, as far as no gatherings larger than 50, social distancing, all those things, how to ensure those things. So those are some of the requirements that we would have to meet currently in the current yellow phase that we're in. Does that answer?
Right. Okay. Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Any other comments? Okay. All right. Let's go to a vote. Councilmember Blackham.
Aye.
Councilmember Lortz.
Aye.
Councilmember Adams.
Aye.
Councilmember Barber.
Aye.
Councilmember Tran.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. All right. All right. Shane, 2020 events plan.
Yes. Thanks, Mayor. Mayor and City Council, it's nice to be with you tonight. From my office, I apologize. I don't have a shower curtain behind me like Mr. Mills. It looks a little nicer, but we'll get through. This item was requested by Mayor Witt. She added this to the agenda to readdress the events that we have discussed for the summer. About 30 days ago, about a month ago, we coordinated with other Davis County cities, and at that time, all of them had decided not to have 4th of July fireworks and to more or less cancel their Memorial Day program. On May 1st, Councilmember Barber, as the liaison to the Parks Department, put together a nice video, and we pushed that out on our social media sites to announce that unfortunately was happening. And as I said, Mayor Witt has requested that we revisit this, and so that's what this agenda item is tonight. As I coordinated with Cole on this, we would like to stay the status quo as we are now, which would be canceling the parade and the fireworks for 4th of July. However, we are working on a quasi fire department parade through the community. We're not yet ready to commit to that, but that's looking very positive. So we'd like to do something, but we'd like to not do the standard 4th of July celebration that we always do. So that's where we are as staff. And of course, we're looking for your direction on any changes to that. We will move forward accordingly.
So one of the reasons I brought this up, we've heard from a couple of mayors in Davis County who have felt that we're just not being creative if we're canceling all our fireworks specifically. I know the mayor of Clearfield was looking at having several fireworks displays throughout the city from different parks, so everybody could see them. I think that down in Woods Cross or West Bountiful, they were thinking of doing something like a drive-in fireworks show. And so I wanted to throw that out to the council as, there are still some options available to celebrate. We did get an email from our police chief saying that we would not want to put on our traditional fireworks program because we just don't need to deal with 40,000 people coming into Kaysville to see the only fireworks show in town, so in the county. But so just wanted to throw it out as to whether or not you want to celebrate our Independence Day with fireworks in some form or fashion. Councilmember Barber.
Hi, I will speak to this as a Parks and Rec liaison. I was surprised to see it come as an agenda item on Monday, being told, especially as an action item. And once again, to just talk about the process of planning these events, I know because I've done it for the past 2.5 years, is there is a lot of work that goes on for months and months and months with committees that are made up of elected officials and city staff and community members. And thank you to all of those who've done that. I was especially surprised to see the mayor's request that we soften the expectation for events on Memorial Day, which is on Monday. And I'm positive we will not be able to put an event together by Monday. That was a fine decision to make, to cancel based on the information that we had at the time when that was made by the mayor quite a few weeks ago. Our youth city council that I introduced at the beginning of the meeting are going to be helping put flags out for the veterans on the cemeteries, both Kaysville and Farmington, and they have committed to just make sure they're there and welcoming people to the city, to the cemetery, staying at a distance. And so I'm very happy with that event, and I'm ready for it to go forward as planned. And 4th of July, I've got to say that is a tough one. You probably all saw me after the mayor's request or telling us that she'd called a meeting with the surrounding mayors and they decided to cancel. That was also after we had met as a 4th of July committee since February to work on our plans. And let me tell you, we had some good stuff, but we were all on the same board, on board. Particularly what changed it for me is hearing from our first responders saying, that's a lot to ask and let's be really careful. So I think that was a good decision. You all saw how difficult literally it was for me to make that decision, to literally go out in front of everybody and tell them that that's the decision we made. But I can tell you, we are getting creative in Kaysville on what we're doing for the 4th of July. I am so proud of our staff and that committee. We have an entire week's leading up to it planned of distant activities that will be released. I'm so proud of them. We have a broadcast live stream planned of patriotic celebrating hometown heroes that we're going to be working really hard on. In that same meeting over a month ago, when we talked about having to cancel our favorite event, it was actually our fire department and police department who brought up the idea of, what if we just surprised everybody in the city and we drove around that morning and we honked our horns and we waved and they could come out and celebrate from right in front of their houses. And so they're working on that so hard. And so when I saw this come up, let's have an action item, I thought, we are doing this. We are working really hard. We are being as accommodating as we can. This is the opposite of taking away freedom. We are working as hard as we can to let you go celebrate however you want. And I'm not going to make a decision right now to bring back anything else and to put our city staff in any other position.
Right. And in fact, I thought after the email exchange that this was, I was just going to interpret to you to look into. I didn't realize it was going to be on the agenda tonight. So, and definitely we do not need to make this, take any vote on this tonight. If anything, it should have been on work yeah. Go ahead, John. Councilmember Adams.
Oh, you're fine. I guess that was going to be my question is, do you feel like Councilmember Barber, I mean, being the liaison, that you would like to have some of those things be, like you said, a surprise? I mean, do you feel like you want it to be on a work item. That's what my question, if I should be motioning that we move this from an action item to a work item, or if it needs to
No.
even be applicable there, or, okay.
We do not need to vote on this at all.
Okay, that was gonna
Yeah.
be my question, if we needed to just
Yeah.
move it, or if we can just, will we have
No.
to, do we have to vote on it now that's an action item, or no?
No,
No, we never vote on community event plans.
right. We
And
don't.
I will also say, I have some other things for the rest of the year that I won't say right now because, as I've said, we've got to follow our right process. But some really awesome plans involving the community to, but I'll just say to round out this historic year. So stay tuned and hopefully we can all work together. John, don't make me laugh.
It's going to be fun. And, but I did want to bring up the subject, at least, and have it out there that we heard from the community that they would like to have it relooked at. But, you know, we're doing the process, you're working with your committee and with the Parks Department. So thank you for that update, is what I should say. All right.
You're welcome.
Okay, let's go to work item is discussion of proposed ordinance amending Title II, Chapter 2, Section 12 regarding termination of electrical services. And I think this is Nick.
I'm happy to speak on this. Bruce and I worked together
Bruce.
on it.
Okay.
But I'm happy to talk briefly about it, and then if Bruce can correct all my errors as I'm sitting here in front of my shower curtain. This is an ordinance and that would alter how we notify people about their termination of their electrical service when they're delinquent on their accounts. Currently, as the ordinance stands, it requires that we send an employee out to hand deliver a notice on the customer's door. And that is excellent service, but it's also very costly and very time consuming for the power department. Sometimes, Bruce said, sometimes the power employees are going around to 100 to 200 homes in a month. Also, we felt like while that is an efficient way, or an effective way, I should say, to alert customers that their account is delinquent, we felt like a phone call, an email, if that we have an active email address on file, or a mail sent through the postal service would also be as effective and much less time consuming and burdensome on the power department. We do still require, under this proposed ordinance, we would still require some kind of personal contact in the winter. And in the winter, it's my understanding that the power department puts a limiter on the delinquent accounts homes so that they can still run their heat and essential services. But we feel like this ordinance would really make some efficiencies in the power department. They would not have to spend so much time going out and hand delivering these notices on people's door. And we feel like the downside would not be that great at all. If we had a phone to their home phone, a personal phone call to their home phone, or a email message or a text message to a number that they had agreed to receive contact to, we felt like that was an equally adequate way to apprise them of their delinquency.
Okay. Great.
I have a couple of comments and questions.
Please.
Is that appropriate now?
Yes. Questions
Okay.
first. No, I'm just teasing.
So, I mean, to me, there's a lot of difference of going to somebody's door, knocking on it and putting a red tag on it and saying, so is there any possible way that we could say that they need to do at least 2 of those things, at least a phone call and a text message, at least 2 of those different, I mean, if you figure the time it takes to actually hand deliver a notice and put on somebody's door, and we don't have to do that anymore, which I agree with you. I think that's but is there some way that we can, because you're talking about turning people's power off. And so I was wondering if it's possible that we could say at least 2 of the following methods. And then the other one I have is under number 4. It says, for termination occurring between October 1st and March 31st, a limiter should be. I don't like the word should. I want it to be a limiter will, if you look at the old language, it said that the limiter will be installed. I like the fact that it will be, because sometimes we don't know the circumstances of a home and maybe why they didn't get the message or why they didn't get the information. But if you just shut their power off and don't put a limiter on, their house could freeze. And so I just want to know what your thoughts are, since this is a work item. I really think there should be 2 methods of notification if we're going to just do it by email, phone, text message, or whatever. And then it truly is, if you're turning somebody's power off between them when it's cold and winter time, I don't like the idea of should be installed. I like the shall be installed. And then it talks about for 4 days or whatever, or 5 days, the limiter can be turned off or whatever. So just some comments, that's all.
We had, since the last item was listed as work, as an action item, we did have somebody signed up to speak to that. And so if we could, let's bring in David Bowman to make his comment about the last item that we did not do anything with exactly.
Thank you. Sorry to force everyone to work back around. There's not a real method to say, wait, when everybody's muted. In the discussion of the 2020 plan on the last discussion, it seemed to me that it was an additional repetition of another instance where once again, somebody acted unilaterally. And as I put myself in the seat or kind of the headspace of what it would be like to be a city staff member and potentially be subject to unilateral actions by elected officials, that's kind of a scary position to be in when we look at these folks that have expertise they bring to our city at a lower pay than they might receive in a commercial area because of their love and desire to serve the city. And I would really just like to encourage the city council that they work on putting together stronger ordinances or even laws and regulations to make it clear so that the staff has clear direction on how to act with requests or processes, right? The fact that, well, maybe there's a 30-day unless it's kind of waived, and if ands or all these buts, or if a special person pushes on it, then maybe it can happen faster. That's got to be really scary for the staff and to be worried about the potential ramification. And I think putting in rules that are hard and fast about how to support them and how to make them happen would be something important to support the staff that works for our city, as well as helping the council demonstrate that they have a strong desire to act in unity and be together when they're making decisions, as opposed to unilateral dictates from members of the council that feel that they've been granted that authority. Thank you.
Thank you. Eric Jessen was also signed up to speak to this. Eric, would you like to speak?
I defer.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
We'll go back to the discussion of the termination of electrical services conversation. Mike Blackham had just made some comments about should and shall, I believe. Anything else, Councilmember Blackham?
No, I want to hear what my other council members have to say.
Can I, excuse me, Mayor?
Yes.
This is Bruce.
Hi, Bruce. Thanks.
Can I speak to Councilmember Blackham's
Please.
concerns? I'm fine with the shall and limiters because we've always done that in the wintertime. The on the noticing them, they get a notice on their bill that they're late, on their bill at the first of the month, and then within 7 to 10 days after that, they get another letter in the mail specifically saying that their power bill is overdue and that will be shut off on a certain day. And and then, like I said, we've been doing red tags. Other cities are doing the exact same thing, except for not doing the red tags. They just, on that 48 hours before, they are having an automated phone system call their phone numbers, and that's the way they notice them. So that would be their third notice that they have received before anything gets shut off.
I really appreciate that, Bruce. I think you answered my question as to making sure they have more than one notice.
Okay, very good. Next questions. Councilmember Lortz, and I think Councilmember Tran also had a question.
So one question, Nick or Bruce, on this. The one concern I would have is that what if it's an old email that they gave us that they're no longer checking or using, or we send a voicemail to a phone number that they've disconnected, but may still not, treat like dead. So we feel like we've left something somewhere but doesn't go anywhere. How do we address kind of the issues that we think we gave notice, but we really didn't?
We anticipate, and I'll let Bruce speak to this as well, but we anticipate placing notice on their power sign-up sheet that says, we're going to contact you at this email address. If you change it, please update us. And they would select that email, they would supply their phone number, and they would affirm that that they were going to keep that updated with the city.
Yes, and we've been working on that for the last year and a half, ever since we started talking about AMI meters, getting that information from each citizen too. So yeah, that and like I say, that would be the third notice that they'd received on that termination.
And I do appreciate, Bruce, your clarification on the first two notices that they get.
Councilmember Tran.
Oh, I was just wondering if it would be appropriate, or if it's possible to just sort of give them maybe the first notice on their bill, because they're already getting that, and then the second notice be a partial power loss or something to their house. And that's, people pay attention to those things, right? As soon as the power doesn't totally work, they will definitely call the city. Would that save money? Is that more time consuming? Is that even possible? Or is that, is it cheaper?
We looked at the way other power agencies had developed their policies around this, and nobody else is limiting power until the bill is about 30 days past due. The way that it's designed here is they would get notice in the power bill, then they would get a separate mailing or emailing 10 days later. I believe it's sometime in the interim, and then another notice, a third notice 48 hours before they were limited. I agree with you that that would certainly get customers' attention. And I think that it's potential that you could do that legally, but that's not the prevailing norm among power agencies that we looked at.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Councilmember Barber, then Councilmember Lortz.
Where this is a work item, I'm glad it's coming before we can ask our questions and keep working on this before it comes for action. I think that the piece that makes us so uncomfortable about talking about this is a horrible situation our residents are in.
maybe it is something like happened to me a couple years ago when my debit card expired and I was nearly gonna have my power turned off, but probably it is a very sad situation that people living in our community are dealing with. And it's really sad for us to think of. And so I'm glad that we're gonna make every single attempt. I actually called our utility office and talked about this process, and they said, one of the things, thankfully, we don't have this happen very often in the city, which is very good, but we also have some generous people in the city who donate money to go towards those who are not able to pay their bills. And I think we hear about that a lot. And for those of us that are listening, probably more than we've usually had on city council, that's an awesome thing to do. If you're looking for a way to benefit your community, call up our front office and they can direct you how to do that. Because noticing is one thing for sure, and it's very important, and I like what's been said, but more the spirit of let's take care of those that might be having some struggles in our community.
All right.
I just want to jump back. Nick, did you say that we're having 100 to 200 a month?
I'd let Bruce speak to that, but I don't think that's every month, but in some months, my understanding is that our power department is issuing 100 to 200 red notices I will say once a year, there's a month or two like that. And that's,
Yeah.
I mean, if you can imagine, if you're going door to door on those, that's a significant number of notices to get.
Yeah, it just concerned me if we have 10 to 20% of our city getting noticed every year.
Well, it usually in the summer months when the bills are high, during those couple months, there's where we have that many. So that's not a normal month, you know, but yeah, it does happen.
Councilmember Adams.
Yeah, you'll have to forgive me for not knowing if this was in there, but do we have anything in there for repeat offenders? I mean, you know, to Councilmember Lord's question, I can't imagine that those 200, that there aren't some folks who are repeat. I mean, do we have anything in place to help with that as far as we're noticing that the same people are getting those notices, that we can try and reach out to them in another manner, or we've thought about that, or does it have to be pretty much the same thing every time?
Bruce and I did speak briefly about that, and we felt like this change would be a good start. We didn't know if the council was interested in discussing repeat offenders. Like Councilmember Barber said, it's a really sad situation, and the city doesn't take certainly no pleasure in issuing these notices. But we're happy to explore that if that's the council's direction, and there are unfortunately repeat offenders.
And I hope that from a standpoint that most people would understand that I bring that up more as a educational type of chance for us to be able to educate these folks and hopefully find ways that we can, make whatever it is, contact them and say like, hey, it seems like this is happening a lot. Is there a reason? Is there somewhere we can help you along the way? Just, try and the whole teach a man to fish adage rather than continue. Thank you, Councilmember Barber, for laughing at that.
Any other questions, comments? Do you feel, staff, do you feel that you have the direction you need?
Just so I'm clear, we want to change the limiter language back to shall, and we want, but we don't need to change the noticing because the statute already, or the ordinance already contemplates multiple notices. Is that correct?
That's what I got, especially from Bruce's explanation.
Perfect.
All right. Okay, very good. Thank you. Okay, next is annexation policy change proposal. Shane.
Thanks, Mayor. We have been talking about this as well for a couple of months with Bruce as well. We had an annexation previous to this existing sitting city council. And one of the items that was a little bit ambiguous was making certain that a property that's annexed into the city is served by the city utilities. There was a lot of requests to have Rocky Mountain Power served because we have our own power company. That makes this a little bit trickier in some regards in annexing property into Kaysville. But the annexation policy plan is a document that there are strict rules and guidelines for what this looks like. So in this work meeting, we're looking for some feedback from you and in how you would like to proceed. If our draft is close, we'd love to start that process of notification. It goes through Planning Commission as well. So that's where we are tonight, but we'd love to hear any feedback you have on what we have here. Mostly what we've changed from our previous example was simply clarifying that whenever possible, the new annex property into the city would be served by Kaysville City Utilities.
I have a comment.
Yes.
I
Councilmember
think
Blackham.
I like in item number 2 where it says municipal services are needed and to be annexed. All properties included in any future annexing shall be served by all possible. I don't like the word possible. Take that out of there. I want it by all Kaysville City Utilities. Because I don't want it to be that gray area as to, well, what's possible? Is it possible because, you know, I don't feel like I can get power through there because it costs me too much money or something like that. Take the possible out of there, make it clear. That would be my deal. And that's just, that's on number 2. And it says all properties included in any future annexation shall be served by all, and it says possible. It should be all Kaysville City Utilities.
It's good feedback. It leaves some ambiguity, I think, with what is possible. It's one person's possible is not another person's.
Exactly.
Possible. Noted.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Any more feedback? Trying to see everybody's face here. Anything else? Okay. All right. Do you have what you need, Shane?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Thanks.
Okay, where are we now? All right, we're on to call to the public. And we will have, just a minute. It'll be Eric Jessen, David Bowman, Sarah Johnson, Kimball Ball, and Randy Von Bosse in that order. So Eric Jessen first, please.
Thank you. I'm relatively new to Kaysville. I retired from the Marine Corps about 7 years ago, spent about 5 years down in Phoenix at Luke Air Force Base, and have been here for about 3 years, in Kaysville for about 2 years. I guess so. I'm a little uneasy. So, you know, my time as a Marine, I was a fighter pilot, and I honestly would tell you I've come within the blink of an eye of death more times than I care to count. Thankfully, I never got shot at, and I never had to drop a bomb or kill anybody. But you know, that was all under the guise of supporting and defending the Constitution. In my time of paying attention, in a lot of stressful times for our country, there's a lot of people taking advantage of crises to pass a lot of bad law. I don't think any of you fall into that category in any way, stretch, or form. But the requirement that we need to do something causes us to pass a lot of bad stuff without the normal consideration, the normal process, and everything that you all discussed. So please be very mindful of that in the future. I don't think it was a great idea to put the moratorium. I think sticking with the process you had probably would have been sufficient. It's been sufficient all the way up to this point throughout all of this madness. And if we hadn't circumvented it, this probably wouldn't even be a thing. So that was a little disappointing to me, to be completely honest and frank. And just, I would ask you to be more cautious about letting an individual event cause you to do something on a blanket statement. Thank you all for your time, your effort, your consideration, and everything that you do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eric.
David Bowman.
Thank you, Council. I wanted to just share some thoughts in regards to the fiber RFP, and just some questions to be considered as these presentations go through. The RFP specifically stated that the city would like to own the fiber utility. I don't believe the city council ever voted to specifically approve that policy or limitation. And the result of that decision, the way it was written, made it so that companies such as Utopia, CenturyLink, Comcast couldn't respond with their known established business models that already serve our community and surrounding communities. And I find that that was a significant error in the way the RFP was written, and therefore very limited. The city has also repeatedly stated in a lot of discussions about the fact that telecoms would be able to rent Kaysville fiber for use for things such as 5G. I've never seen any evidence, and I'm curious if anybody in the evaluating committee has, that any large telecom has ever actually rented municipal fiber from anyone. Relying on this as part of the financial numbers for the math and the overall RFP responses means it's an important question to consider. The other part, and maybe this is somewhat selfish, but how was the selection done on the citizen committee? Why didn't it include anyone from the Coalition for Responsible Fiber? They literally led a referendum across the city that forced a referendum and clearly would have represented a significant portion of the city's interests and citizens, and no one was included. I also noted that in both of the responses, the RFP assumed a 50% response rate based in the request and in the responses from the vendors that you visited with tonight. And both of them, as softly as they could while trying to win business, said that that number was crazy and that they would struggle to meet that number. I think it's important that you consider those items as we discuss how we're going to bring something like this around to the public. I also wanted to make a comment that given the low frequency of the number of times we actually have to shut off power and the fact that we live in a desert that's either super cold or super hot for the most part, we shouldn't turn people's power off. You don't turn people's power off in the middle of a pandemic, right? So if that's going on right now because that's our normal flow and we're entering into the summer, then shame on you for letting it happen, because in a time of global pandemic, we should not be shutting off people's power. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Sorry, took a minute to unmute,
Thanks.
but thank you.
Thank you.
We'll address.
I think we have a request to have Gil Miller make a comment. We have room, so please.
Gil, you're still muted if you're able to speak.
There we go.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all for your service. I realize you all had to spend some time on certain issues this week with even Councilmember Adams. But considering that you all make about 25 cents an hour, I don't think the taxpayers lost too much on your service this week. Thank you. But the time spent by many employees of the city in dealing with this issue is what has disturbed me this week. The mere thought of our Kaysville people in blue, that they could have been put in harm's way over this issue, has made me shake my head all week. I am grateful that the council has discussed it and has come to some reasonable conclusions. I hope that the city of Grantsville or the county of Tooele will also consider their law enforcement and not put them in harm's way for any type of issue that could cause harm to our men and women in blue. Thank you.
Thank you, Gil.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gil.
Thank you, Gil.
Thanks.
All right, council member reports. Volunteers. Okay,
I have nothing to report.
okay. Council member Blackham.
First, I'll start with community development, and that we're working with Farmington on looking at some possible, looking at the interchange down there, and our public works people are working on that, and Shane's also working on that. So that they're in the middle of that, and lots going on, lots of development. You'll see things are going to be coming forward. And then the other one I want to is give a shout out to the fire department. Then a structured fire this morning, and nobody was hurt. Fire was put out, and that's what we always like to hear. And just want to say thanks to those departments and also the police department. You know, they're out there, and whatever we do or whatever mistakes we make, they're always out there covering our back. So I really want to thank them for that. So that's all I got.
Thank you. Councilmember Tran.
Just wanted to let you know, Planning Commission is working with Community Development to finalize a website that will be available for the general plan so that the community can kind of provide input and take some surveys and do some great things there. So kind of excited about that. And I just wanted to give a shout out to our city manager, Shane, and to Nick, our attorney, and to Chief Oberg, and to Chief Erickson, and to, all of my fellow council members and Cole. We've all just been texting them constantly, calling them. They've taken calls at all hours of the night and day over the last couple of days. And I'm just so grateful. In fact, my family was saying, why are they responding to you? When I'm emailing at 10 o'clock at night or sending a text, and I'm going, because they love the city. And so I just really appreciate everything that you've all done to make sure that we're doing what's best for the community and keeping everybody safe. And I know it's already been stated, but really, I'm so grateful to be able to serve because I had no idea what happened behind the scenes. I didn't even think twice about it previous to this experience. And so I'm just very grateful for everything that goes on.
Hear, hear.
Agreed.
Anybody else? Any other comments? Councilmember Barber.
As a follow-up to the Parks and Rec discussion, I won't read them all, but I'm really proud of our Parks and Rec staff. They have put an entire plan together for the rest of the year for rec sports. And the good news is lots of them are coming back in very careful ways, obviously. They sent out some emails, keep checking on kaysvillerec.com, but there are lots of things available. And if you have kids needing something to do this summer, there's everything from tennis to bowling lessons. So that's going to be awesome. And more will keep being added as we're able. And so that's fantastic, including the splash pad opening, hopefully next week. So that's good news. We'll see on that, and we will make an announcement, but that's awesome. We have all of those. My other responsibility, I wanted to briefly answer some of those questions on the fiber project. That is why I'm glad we have a lot of time. We're going to be working on this next week. We will address those questions. It's actually stated on the website how the citizens panel was formed and selected, trying to be as unbiased and get a diverse group as possible within some legal considerations we had at the time. So thank you to the council members, other council members besides Andre and myself that helped with that. That was a big help. And we will be answering those questions and keep emailing us. And we appreciate the involvement. Having this as open as possible is going to benefit everybody. So thank you for that.
Okay. Any other council member reports? Okay, city manager.
Mayor, I thought this meeting would go to about 10:30, so I've got 35 minutes of reports to give. But on all seriousness, thank you to the council and to the mayor for your supportive staff. We really, really appreciate it. I'm through the evaluations, the annual evaluations with the department heads. And as you know, we have the best team we possibly could have. Things could not be better from a staff perspective. And we're really grateful for your support in whether it's budget talks or just your day-to-day interactions with us. We cannot thank you enough. So appreciate that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Shane.
All right.
Thanks, Shane.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved.
So moved.
Second, third, fourth.
Ready,
Aye.
set?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Aye.
Good night, you guys.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you, everyone, for